This man never expected that, by moving into a nearby shrine to focus on his studies, he would accidentally end up with 3 beautiful wives. Uryu, an orphan, aimed to get into Kyoto University's medical school and moved into a shrine for convenience. However, upon arrival, the caretaker was absent. Hearing noises from a room, Uryu approached and was unexpectedly greeted with a face wash squirted by 3 unclothed young women. Bleeding from the nose, Uryu watched as the girls quickly shut the door, dressed, and then came out to confront him. They were the shrine maidens, 3 sisters: Yae, a 20-year-old college student; Asahi, a 14-year-old middle schooler; and Yuna, a 17-year-old high schooler with a tsundere attitude, strongly opposing the idea of Uryu, a vigorous high school boy, becoming part of their family. Uryu had no desire to play a familial role. He just wanted a place to study. Fortunately, the eldest sister Yae warmly prepared a room for him, albeit just shoving clutter into the closet and nearly getting injured, which Uryu prevented by stepping in to help. Yuna walked in on this scene, flustered and throwing salt to ward off evil. Before Uryu could settle down, Asahi appeared, attempting to flirt with him and suggesting they grow closer, only to be rebuffed, leading her to doubt his masculinity and snoop through his luggage. Uryu tried to stop her but slipped, landing on top of Asahi just as Yuna walked in again. Studying until 1 a.m., Uryu couldn't finish his study plan and went to wash his face. Noticing a light in a room, he found Yuna asleep and sneezing. As he attempted to cover her with a blanket, she woke up and struggled, just as Yae and Asahi walked in on an inappropriate scene. On his first day, Uryu had already gotten involved with all 3 shrine maidens, and no one believed his explanations. Curious, Uryu asked why Yuna was staying up late making amulets, which she intended for shrine visitors as part of her duties. The sisters removed their red hair ties, praying devoutly with the identical bands, a keepsake from their mother. Although their mother was gone, their memories remained connected. Yuna asked Uryu why he was up so late, and upon hearing his study reasons, was shocked since his ambition was to enter a prestigious medical school. The sisters mentioned that the shrine also honored a deity of academic success, and that a meteor shower might soon grant miracles. Yuna, hopeful like a child believing in fairy tales, was disillusioned by Uryu, who debunked the meteor shower with science and criticized their naive beliefs. Yuna's immediate wish was to kick him out. In fact, Uryu firmly believed that only hard work could change fate. He thought talismans and prayers were just tricks for children. Just then, he noticed a foreign little girl in front of Yuna. The two couldn't speak each other's language, so Uryu stepped forward to help. He explained the situation to the girl in fluent English. Delighted, the girl happily accepted the talisman and thanked them. After the guest left, Uryu mentioned he could teach Yuna English. Rarely candid, Yuna thanked Uryu, but just then a gust of wind blew, and a bird snatched Yuna's hair tie, a keepsake from their mother. The 3 sisters searched the entire shrine, but couldn't find it. However, they weren't panicked, because they believed the deity would guide them. Uryu couldn't stand to listen. Such an important item deserved more concern. He bluntly shattered their illusion, saying no amount of prayer would fulfill their wishes. Wishes weren't granted by gods, but by oneself. Yuna immediately disagreed, believing that the gods would never ignore their prayers. The tension between Uryu and Yuna, which had just eased, became strained again. Yuna also repeated that Uryu was not suited for this place. That night, Uryu tried to study in his room but couldn't concentrate. Later, Yae and Asahi came over but found the room empty except for a photo on the desk of Uryu and his mother in a hospital. The sisters recalled their grandfather mentioning Uryu's mother had died when he was young, leaving him to grow up in an orphanage. The photo showed Uryu holding several talismans, likely praying to the gods daily, yet his wishes remained unfulfilled. This made him believe in self-reliance. This realization eased Yae and Asahi's worries about Uryu and Yuna's relationship, seeing their similar traits of being indirect and overly nice. Unknown to them, Yuna was listening at the door. Meanwhile, Uryu ran alone to the back mountain searching for the red string, returning disheveled without success. Remembering what the sisters had said during the day, he tried praying, hoping to find the important item. Yuna arrived just in time to see this and stood by Uryu, commending him for voicing his wish as it let the deities hear. They apologized to each other for their previous attitudes. Yuna, still haughty, acknowledged that Uryu's slight respect for the gods made his stay at the shrine barely acceptable. Just then, Yae and Asahi joined them, and they all returned together. On their way back, they encountered the meteor shower Yuna had hoped for. Even the scientifically minded Uryu was stunned by the beauty, although he soon realized it was just the effect of the meteor shower coinciding perfectly with cherry blossoms. The sisters argued that the scene before them was indeed a miracle. Unable to deny it, Uryu watched as the red string, carried away by a bird, quietly slipped down, landing perfectly on Yuna's head. Early the next morning, the shrine's manager announced some shocking news. Uryu was to become their family's son-in-law through marriage and inherit the Kanjin shrine. All four were taken aback as they had never heard of such a plan. Moreover, Uryu aimed to be a doctor, not a shrine inheritor. The old man reassured him, saying that being a shrine priest could be a side job. But that wasn't the point. Uryu had no intention of marrying into the family. The old man then played his trump card, mentioning he had considered transferring Uryu to a high school with a higher acceptance rate. Uryu immediately knelt and accepted, willing to do anything for a chance to attend the University of Tokyo. He assumed the marriage talk was just the old man's bluster. However, the three sisters didn't see it that way. None of them wanted to marry and decided to subtly drive Uryu away. They started by assigning him the cooking duties, leaving only a few ingredients in the fridge. To their surprise, Uryu prepared a delicious meal, leaving no room for complaints. After cooking, he was eager to return to his studies, but was tasked with laundry next, including the sisters' underwear. Uryu didn't mind and even inquired why a pink set wasn't complete, showing unexpected familiarity with the task. After washing and neatly folding the laundry, it was clear nothing could deter him. At this point, Yuna had to resort to her ultimate weapon, asking Uryu to clean Yae's room. Upon opening the door, Uryu nearly collapsed in despair. It was no place for a human cluttered with discarded paint, as Yae was an art student. Unexpectedly, Uryu managed to clean the room spotlessly, making Yae and Asahi reluctant to lose such a handy helper. They both urged Yuna to let him stay. However, Uryu no longer wanted to stay, as his main purpose at the shrine was to study, and these chores left him no time for books. His goal was clear: to enter the medical department of the University of Tokyo. So, he decided to leave to pursue his dream and packed his bags. The three sisters couldn't leave him alone and secretly followed him. Uryu continued to study even on the train, heading to a remote rural area, eventually entering an old house. Yuna thought he had to live in such a dilapidated house after being expelled, but the next second, Uryu appeared behind her, startling her into throwing salt. A group of children surrounded him, assessing the three sisters. Then, a beautiful older sister appeared. This was Mahiru, the caregiver and doctor at the children's home called Miracle Garden. It was she who had contacted the sisters' grandfather to arrange Uryu's stay. Mahiru cheerfully noted Uryu's adorable traits, mentioning he had always mimicked her and aspired to attend Kyoto University. Before she could reveal the real reason, Uryu interrupted, insisting he would not return to the shrine, only to be met with a direct threat of physical force by Mahiru. Meanwhile, two children showed Uryu paper cranes they had folded. Uryu's childhood friend Tsuruyama also came over. The children were folding origami cranes for their family members, as many were sent here because their relatives were too ill or injured to care for them. They all folded paper cranes together in hopes of blessing their loved ones. However, Uryu felt it was a waste of time. Yuna couldn't stand such talk, and decisively joined the children in folding. Unfortunately, Yae was too wild, Asahi too clumsy, and Yuna too slow, causing the children to prefer Uryu's help. Uryu ended up efficiently folding many cranes for them. After finishing, the children worriedly asked if the cranes could really heal their mothers. This reminded Uryu of his own mother, whom he had also folded many cranes for, though she ultimately passed away. Holding a paper crane, Uryu comforted the children by saying that doctors would surely work harder seeing these cranes, so they shouldn't worry. Although not good at expressing his emotions, Uryu was always there to support those in sorrow. Mahiru and Tsuruyama spoke highly of him, prompting Mahiru to earnestly request that the three sisters take good care of Uryu. In the evening, Mahiru asked Uryu why he ran back, and he shared his experience at the shrine, emphasizing the lack of time to study. However, Mahiru knew Uryu was capable since childhood but struggled with social interactions, possibly feeling unwelcome. Yet the fact that the sisters had followed him proved he wasn't as disliked as he thought. Mahiru challenged him, asking if he was the type to give up over minor issues, which triggered memories of his childhood desire to help Mahiru with the laundry, though she preferred doing everything herself. Their conversation was overheard by the sisters, who suspected Uryu had a crush on Mahiru. Blushing, Uryu clarified he only saw Mahiru as a benefactor and apologized to the sisters for his stubbornness, promising to handle whatever was needed, making the sisters feel guilty for overburdening him. They decided to share the household chores more evenly, finally accepting Uryu as family. However, they still struggled with tasks, often leaving Uryu to handle everything. To deepen their bond, the old man shockingly suggested that Uryu and each sister go on individual blind dates. Uryu was set to go on dates with 3 beautiful girls in turns. He, focused only on his studies, planned to get it over with quickly. However, upon seeing Asahi all dressed up, he couldn't move. It was clear Asahi was enjoying herself. The old man left them alone for the day. Uryu had Asahi all to himself. Asahi flirted openly, pulling at her clothes and confessing her long-held desire to do this with Uryu. Uryu quickly covered his eyes, unable to look, but Asahi changed quickly, putting on sunglasses and inviting Uryu to go running. The date was unexpectedly healthy, surprising Uryu. He had thought Asahi was the most carefree and playful of the sisters, but the younger sister proved him wrong. After running for 5 hours, he felt drained and staggered back to the shrine. Just as he was about to take a bath, he bumped into Asahi, fresh from her bath and naked, as she liked the open feeling and didn't close the door. Uryu called her a pervert and went straight to sleep, exhausted. He woke at 5 in the morning, having not studied at all. To his horror, Asahi was still there, not ready to end the date, and invited him for a morning run. They went to the storeroom to find jogging shoes. The cramped, eerie storeroom seemed perfect for a lucky pervert scenario, like getting locked in together. Just as Asahi spoke, a gust of wind helpfully shut and locked the door. The usually composed Asahi, who had been teasing Uryu, panicked. Realizing she might be claustrophobic, Uryu asked her about her fear. He comforted her by patting her head and assured her they would be out soon, even letting her hug him to ease her fear. Uryu found scissors and started to remove the wooden boards from a window. By morning, they managed to get out, only to find themselves on the 2nd floor. Uryu, after a moment of silence, bravely jumped down to open the door. As he did, Asahi felt like she saw the light and unusually thanked and apologized to Uryu. Uryu didn't take it to heart, seeing Asahi as a little sister, cute like a child. When Yuna and Yae, her older sisters, arrived and saw Asahi was fine, they were relieved. Asahi returned to her mischievous self, thanking Big Brother Uryu for a memorable night. Poor Uryu's reputation suffered again. Today, Uryu was set to meet Yuna for a date. He prepared mentally before entering, but was surprised by Yuna's beautiful outfit and unusually gentle demeanor. Yuna asked about his interests, and upon hearing he liked reading, praised him as serious and diligent, making Uryu wonder if she was possessed. Then a cat emerged from the bushes, and Yuna quickly gestured for it to go back. Uryu felt something was off and confronted Yuna back inside, only to be pushed down, her clothes slipping off her, more daring than Asahi's act the day before. Uryu barely resisted. Yuna's intent was to make a move and thus secure the shrine's future, but Uryu wasn't the type to take advantage, so Yuna dressed and left. Yae and Asahi, who had been watching secretly, came out to explain Yuna's haste. They all wanted to preserve the shrine. If one sister had to marry Uryu, Yuna was willing to sacrifice herself for her siblings. Knowing this, Yae and Asahi were worried. Uryu thought it over, and the next morning urged Yuna to change and go on the date, leading her directly to a cat cafe. Determined not to be swayed, Yuna couldn't resist the kittens and cuddled them, but soon asked to leave, prioritizing her mission for the shrine. She thought Uryu would understand, as he was also dedicated to becoming a doctor for the sake of the children at his institution. Uryu didn't deny it, but reminded Yuna that her sisters were also important. So, to avoid worrying Yae and Asahi, relaxing like this once in a while isn't too much. Even he declared a complete break from studying today, opting to thoroughly enjoy the cat cafe instead. In the end, Yuna bought 3 souvenirs, planning to visit again with her sisters next time. Unbeknownst to her, Uryu had also become hooked. Studying is no match for the joy of petting cats. To Uryu's surprise, Yuna also bought him a small cat charm as a thank you gift for today. Yuna, smiling, said she had a lot of fun, which initially scared Uryu, thinking she was acting odd again. He was relieved only when Yuna started to get angry. On the 3rd day, Uryu was supposed to have a matchmaking meeting with Yae, but she didn't show up. He couldn't wait and went directly to her room, only to find the eldest sister changing her clothes, causing him to nosebleed. Oblivious, Yae apologized and asked Uryu to wait a bit more. However, after waiting outside the door for an hour with no sign of her, he blindfolded himself and opened the door again, only to find the room empty. He quickly informed Yuna and Asahi, and they all started searching for Yae, who, unbeknownst to them, was calmly drawing on the steps by herself. When Uryu found her, she was puzzled, then remembered she was supposed to have a matchmaking meeting with him that day. Seeing a half-finished painting of a Tori in Yae's room, Uryu guessed she might have gone to Inari Shrine for research, and sure enough, he found her there. Uryu wasn't easily fooled. Something as important as a matchmaking meeting wouldn't just be forgotten by Yae. He asked her why she skipped the meeting. Yae, in turn, asked what he thought, but since they were already there, they decided to have the meeting at the shrine. They enjoyed their time at Inari Shrine, and Yae bought an amulet as an apology gift for Uryu. Uryu was baffled, unable to figure out what the eldest sister was thinking. Suddenly, Yae turned around and asked him whom he wanted to marry. Asahi, although mature for her age, shows her childish charm occasionally. Yuna, despite being a tsundere, also reveals her cute side from time to time. Of course, Uryu could come to like this elder sister. Unexpectedly, Uryu's face turned red immediately, and the words he tried to speak lacked confidence. He was about to say he wouldn't marry them when he missed a step and fell down the stairs. Yae quickly grabbed the amulet's string, but it snapped. In that instant, Uryu's mind flashed through his past and even saw a future where he was accepted into Kyoto University's medical school, and his eventual spouse turned out to be all three sisters? Uryu suddenly woke up to find himself unknowingly having fallen asleep on the desk. Was it all a dream? But then, what about the amulet? After dreaming that he married all three sisters, Uryu rushed with an amulet to ask Yae for clarification. However, Yae seemed completely unaware of his fall down the stairs. Instead, Yuna suddenly appeared and sent him to buy the finest snacks because a VIP was visiting the shrine. This VIP was the head of the Kita Shirakawa family, longtime sponsors of the shrine, who announced plans to sell the shrine due to declining visitors and revenue. Despite past connections, the head said the family could keep their house. He then mocked the situation, noting how the shrine thrived with crowds during the Mother's Time and the grand festival drew thousands. But after the priestess's death, visitor numbers plummeted and the sisters couldn't manage. Yuna, deeply hurt, wanted to punch him, but her sister calmed her. Unable to listen further, Uryu wagered that if they could attract 5 times the peak attendance, or 5,000 people, at the next grand festival, the shrine would be saved. Yae also pleaded humbly, and the others followed suit. The arrogant head agreed to give them a chance, but refused financial support for the festival. Should they fail to meet the target, they'd lose even their house. The sisters chose to trust Uryu and agreed to his plan. The head left with a threatening remark. Despite seeming confident, the sisters had no ideas to attract visitors and pinned all hopes on Uryu, who returned to his room to start preparations, reassuring them as they watched his dependable figure. Uryu stayed up all night reviewing the festival's management accounts and noticed a sudden drop in the number of stalls, starting from a certain period. Yae told him that after their mother passed away, they became distant from the shopping district. Grandpa couldn't host large festivals with many stalls because he was taking care of them. However, Asahi confidently stated that she was now capable of handling her duties as a priestess on her own. Yae and Yuna also felt confident, but Uryu, knowing their actual capabilities, decided to start a second plan, which was to utilize social media. He first checked the shrine's outdated official website, which lacked any appealing features. So, he decided to feature the 3 sisters on it. Asahi quickly caught on to the main point. Uryu's willingness to promote through them probably meant he thought they were pretty, right? Uryu, blushing, confirmed this. However, Yuna completely disagreed, arguing that sacred priestesses should not engage in such worldly promotions. Asahi was very cooperative and first posted a photo of herself in her bedroom. Who wouldn't be charmed by a beautiful 14-year-old middle school girl? Yet, it only received 1 like. So, Asahi posted a photo of Yuna, which got 2 likes. Still unsatisfied, Uryu thought something more attractive was needed. Asahi then took a photo of their eldest sister changing clothes, but this time, it got no likes at all. Uryu knew where the problem lay. While the photos were nice, they did not convey the charm of the festival itself. Realizing this, Asahi suggested taking sexy photos in their priestess garments. This playful attitude angered Yuna, who was already opposed to using the priestess image for promotion. She believed their actions were a desecration to the divine, even stating that Asahi had no right to be a priestess. The sisters had a big argument, accusing each other of being unqualified. Asahi thought Yuna was too conservative and that her attitude would continue the shrine's decline. Luckily, Yae stepped in to mediate. Both younger sisters were somewhat intimidated by her, managing only to maintain a superficial peace. But Yuna was also trying hard, secretly practicing expressions in the mirror at night. Uryu saw this and took her to Asahi's room. Asahi was struggling with an unfamiliar computer, trying her best to promote the shrine. Despite this, wasn't she still qualified to be a priestess? Yuna's earlier words were spoken in anger. She never truly felt that way. She sent Asahi a photo she had just taken in the mirror as a gesture of reconciliation. After a harsh critique from her younger sister, Yuna took the opportunity to hug her and apologize. The two sisters reconciled like before. Yae once again popped up, watching them play and tease each other. Uryu couldn't resist and snapped a photo with his phone. Unexpectedly, this photo went viral. Everyone was drawn to the three sisters' smiles. Seizing the moment, they uploaded a video of the sisters performing a ritual dance, which also became very popular. Seeing the social media promotion on the right track, Uryu turned into their manager. The next step was to consider promoting limited edition festival merchandise, such as amulets or other goods, naturally handled by Yae, the art student. However, on the day of the deadline, Yae had no updates. Uryu went to urge her, but she was unhurried, not having started drawing because she knew the real deadline was the next morning. As it was nearing midnight, Uryu felt it would be too late and prepared to confine Yae to make her draw. But when he rushed to her room, she was gone. Yae had gone to the back mountain to feed the koi. Seeing two koi kissing sparked not only spring feelings but also inspiration. The next morning, Uryu presented his own all-nighter design, which was deemed ugly by both Yuna and Asahi. Just then, Yae arrived late, living up to her art student reputation with a beautiful design that even amazed Uryu. The main element was the koi, chosen for its associations with enhancing financial and success luck and coincidentally sounding like love. Yae added a matchmaking effect. The design was a hit, particularly attracting young visitors online, perfectly hitting their tastes. Though Uryu was pleased, he felt Yae was too independent, always keeping him on edge. He decided he needed to keep a closer eye on her in the future. Yae was touched and even blushed. Now that the festival was thoroughly promoted and limited edition goods were in production, it still wasn't enough. Uryu had another plan, to take the three sisters to visit the shop owners in the shopping district and ask for their help. Uryu immediately took a humble approach and explained the major crisis the shrine was facing. If not enough tourists came, the shrine would have to close its doors. After his explanation, the four of them bowed together, hoping the shop owners would lend their strength. To their surprise, the chairman agreed without hesitation. In fact, they were just discussing a meeting related to the shrine's festival. Although visits had decreased since the former priestess passed away, everyone still held the shrine in their hearts. They hadn't realized the shrine was facing such a severe crisis and naturally wanted to help. As they reminisced, it was decided to start a strategy meeting immediately. Witnessing this harmonious scene, the three sisters finally understood what their mother had said before. A priestess should value the connection with those who pray to the gods, all thanks to Uryu. The festival day finally arrived, and the shopkeepers on the shopping street were all prepared. Various stalls were set up at the shrine, and Uryu and his group of 4 were ready. However, only 35 people showed up. Despite the buzz online, why didn't more people come in person? Uryu suspected something was wrong. Just then, Asahi ran over with his phone, and they discovered that an imposter account had announced the cancellation of the festival. Even more absurdly, their legitimate account was mistaken for a fake and got frozen by the platform. The culprit was likely the head of the house, upset by Uryu's group's lack of respect. Now, what could they do? Was their effort going to be in vain? Everyone felt unwilling to give up. Uryu rallied first, declaring it too early to give up. There were still ways to salvage the situation. It was only 10:30 a.m., and the event lasted until 6 p.m. They had 7.5 hours left, with the main events in the afternoon. There was still hope if they could attract attention then. Uryu shared his plan with the three sisters, who were shocked and disagreed. However, a passing elderly man supported Uryu, and the shopkeepers were already preparing. The decision was made. Uryu went to distribute flyers while urging the three sisters to get ready since they were the stars of the festival. The grandfather reassured them that the most important thing about the festival was to enjoy with the gods and not to worry about upsetting them. The shopkeepers were also enthusiastic, eager to make a big impact. However, Uryu's flyer distribution wasn't going well. No one paid him any attention. It all came down to Mahiru. whose beauty made her words effective. She arrived with Tsuruyama and some children who had come to attend the festival, but ended up helping out when they heard about Uryu's troubles. With their help, flyer distribution went smoothly, and passers-by started to take notice. Finally, Yae and her sisters made their appearance. With the Miko parading through the streets, those who originally planned to attend the festival quickly realized that the cancellation was false news. The three smiling beauties captured everyone's attention. However, unexpectedly, just as things started going smoothly, a heavy rain began, quickly emptying the bustling street. Who would brave such weather to attend a festival? The weather forecast still predicted strong winds and heavy rain after noon, suggesting that no more visitors would likely come today. Uryu felt extremely disheartened. To not let everyone's efforts go to waste, he still went out to attract visitors. Yae and her sisters remained calm, believing that although the gods test people, they would not abandon them. Even then, Uryu watched as they ran to pray to the rain god. Still, he decided to make his final effort in his own way, and quickly ran down the mountain. The rain continued, but no one gave up. Uryu thought hard about a solution, and just then, the rain gradually stopped. Yae and her sisters came over with umbrellas, and following Uryu's pointing finger, everyone was amazed. The pond ahead was filled with cherry blossom petals, leaving them with such a miraculous sight. The three Miko stepped onto the central platform in the pond and began dancing a prayer dance among the cherry blossoms. Tourists began taking photos and videos, and the footage they uploaded attracted even more visitors. The pond also had koi, perfectly symbolizing the theme designed by Yae. The success of this festival reminded people of the days when Yuna and their mother were alive. Although it was the help of the gods and everyone else that made this festival a success, the three sisters grew from the experience and decided to rely on their own strength next time to keep the shrine bustling with crowds. Besides the constant stream of visitors, the charms and stamped cloths also sold well. Worried that Uryu would be too busy alone, Sister Mahiru also came to help in her Miko outfit and gave Uryu pointers on how to work. Happy to see him enjoying himself, Uryu didn't feel happy at all. He never believed in gods and was led around by the three sisters since his arrival, nearly becoming their brother-in-law by marriage. He had to do numerous chores every day, and lately, he was busy with matchmaking and the festival, leaving him no time to read. "Hey man, you just realized you haven't read for days." Mahiru saw through his tough exterior to his soft heart, knowing that Uryu felt sympathy for the sisters struggling after their mother's death. Uryu argued that it wasn't out of sympathy. He just felt that their efforts deserved proper rewards, which was indeed true. Unnoticed, the festival was almost over, with only 5 minutes left and just one visitor short of 5,000. All nearby potential visitors had already come. Before they could find the last person, the head of the household, who had been following the festival, appeared. Seeing the youth's frustrated expressions delighted him. He then announced with a sly grin that they had passed, and he would continue to sponsor the shrine. As for being one person short, including him made exactly 5,000. Uryu and the others were overjoyed and respectfully saw him off. The head of the household also looked forward to how the shrine would develop in the future. Regardless, Uryu and the others had successfully conducted the festival. Asahi and Yuna were so moved, they burst into tears. To reward Uryu, Yae gave him a quick kiss, shocking all three of them. Poor Uryu, the innocent young man, got a nosebleed just from a kiss from his elder sister figure. After Yae kissed him, Uryu couldn't calm his heart. He tried to focus on studying but kept replaying the scene in his mind, causing a nosebleed. And he wants to go to medical school? Uryu realized while lying on the floor that Yae might like him. Asahi immediately dismissed it as his overactive imagination. But it's understandable since their elder sister is stunning. Seeing Uryu so troubled, Asahi, a beautiful girl, decided to reveal Yae's feelings. She interviewed Yae about her thoughts on Uryu. Yae responded, "He's a good person," effectively friend-zoning him. This wasn't conclusive since Yae's thoughts were unpredictable. Asahi then had a bright idea to push Yae to her limit with a run, believing people can't lie when pushed to the edge. Yae, however, was too eye-catching while running, and only thought about bathing when exhausted. Back at the shrine, the sisters hurried to bathe together. Asahi blushed and directly asked why Yae kissed Uryu. Despite Uryu being nice and hardworking, he was being forced into marriage with them. Yae didn't answer directly, but mysteriously told Asahi, "It's a secret." Uryu wasn't surprised by this non-answer, and didn't expect Asahi to find the truth. He wanted to pat his little sister's head, but Asahi was upset about being treated like a child. She tackled Uryu and nibbled his ear, which confused him even more. Asahi also said, "It's a secret." Uryu was overwhelmed. What were these sisters planning? He couldn't sleep that night. In the morning, he noticed something off with Yuna just as Yae arrived, looking like she knew something, but neither would speak to Uryu. At night, Uryu completed his study plan without any trouble, which he found unbelievable. Unable to resist, he went out to check on the three sisters. He saw Asahi sneaking around outside Yuna's room, where Yuna was nervously sewing amulets for Asahi's birthday tomorrow. Uryu then realized that the two were preparing a birthday surprise for their sister. Across the way, Yae was also busy, having sewn a bunch of odd dolls. It was past midnight, and the two sisters began to argue, each believing their gift would be preferred by Asahi. Accidentally, they collided, damaging both the dolls and amulets. Uryu was speechless. Just as he was about to intervene, Asahi stopped him, pretending to be unaware of the situation. She asked them what had happened. It was now Asahi's birthday, and as they were about to give their gifts, they saw the ruined presents. However, Asahi didn't mind at all. She knew her sister's intentions were in the handmade gifts, and she loved her sisters the most. Finally, the three sisters embraced. Uryu, watching, felt relieved and blushed as he wished Asahi a happy birthday. Feeling that a simple birthday wish was insufficient, he stayed up all night mending the broken dolls and amulets, learning as he did. In the morning, the sisters woke to find him with a tutorial book, still drowsy, with not only Yae's and Yuna's gifts on the table, but also a birthday card handwritten by Uryu. However, Uryu had a dream about Yuna and accidentally kissed her in his sleep. He woke up startled, calling it a nightmare. Just then, he received a message from his older sister Mahiru, asking him to come home. So, Yae and Asahi, who came to trouble him, missed him. As they learned he would only return in the evening, they decided to wait for him. Reminded by Yuna, they felt a bit embarrassed about how much they relied on Uryu. They thought being as cold as Yuna towards Uryu wasn't right either. Now it was Yuna's turn to reflect. After all, Uryu had indeed helped them a lot, and as shrine maidens, they naturally needed to show their gratitude. On the other side, Uryu received his new school uniform from Mahiru. School starts next week. It was only a spring break, yet Uryu felt it had been a long time. He thought it unnecessary to call him over just for this minor matter. It could have been sent directly to the shrine. Mahiru teased him on purpose, saying she just wanted to see him. Uryu's face turned red instantly. Then Mahiru asked how life was going with the shrine maidens. Uryu began to complain, listing the sisters' flaws, stating they all needed his care, which troubled him greatly. However, his expression said otherwise. Mahiru saw right through him, accusing Uryu of being too self-conscious. She broke his defenses with just a few words and reminded him to face them properly. She pointed out that if he truly wanted to study hard and get into Kyoto University, he shouldn't be distracted. On his way back, Uryu reflected on whether he was getting too close to the three sisters. Continuing this way, he might end up marrying into their family, which meant he had to keep his distance and focus on getting into university to become a doctor and repay Mahiru's kindness. Before reaching the shrine, he encountered Yuna, who had come out specifically to meet him. It turned out Yuna had also reflected on her behavior and felt she should express her gratitude to Uryu. On the road, she started massaging his shoulders. Noticing Uryu's shoelaces were loose, she knelt to tie them for him. From this angle, Uryu saw more of Yuna than he intended, and quickly knelt down too, asking what she was trying to do. Yuna said she just wanted to show her gratitude. However, Uryu found her words eerily familiar, along with the incident from earlier, and he suddenly remembered it was just like the dream he had that morning. Was the next part supposed to be a kiss? Yuna was there expressing her thanks, but Uryu was consumed by the scene from his dream. Both were extremely nervous. Yuna finally said, "Thank you," and then hesitated to make any further move. Only then did Uryu feel somewhat relieved. Just as he relaxed, a child bumped into Yuna, causing her lips to press directly against Uryu's. Uryu reacted quickly, blocking her with his hand, just like in his dream. Yuna's next move, predictably, was to sprinkle salt to ward off evil, and she teased Uryu for being presumptuous. Uryu, annoyed, walked ahead. Yuna also felt annoyed because Uryu's actions seemed to show he resisted her closeness. Sensing turmoil within, Yuna sprinkled salt on her head again, hoping to cleanse her troubled thoughts. Uryu had another prophetic dream about a strange shrine. He saw Yuna with a dazed expression and Yae blushing by the river. Later, he carried Asahi and walked side by side with two others in the street. At night, the three sisters surrounded Uryu and slept together. Although Uryu came to study, he kept having vivid dreams. At dinner, when he heard Yuna discussing a visit to the Tsukigami shrine, he was stunned as his dream seemed to come true again. Unexpectedly, the sisters' priestess mentor was also at Tsukigami shrine. After the main festival, the shrine grew busier and was short-staffed. Though school was starting, the sisters still needed to attend. They planned to negotiate with Tsukigami Shrine to help manage it and invited Uryu to join. He immediately refused, not wanting to be led by fate and insisting on creating his own future. Just after the sisters left, the old man asked Uryu to deliver an important item to Tsukigami Shrine. Unable to refuse, he went. At Tsukigami Shrine, the priestess seemed to expect this and had the servant prepare 4 cups of tea. Soon, Uryu arrived with a heavily sealed box. The priestess, named Yomiko, introduced herself as a Miko of higher rank than the sisters, acting as an instructor. The priority was the box. Yomiko, with a serious face, unleashed some power and opened it, revealing a yakubashi inside. Uryu was speechless, realizing the old man had tricked him again. Tsukigami Shrine is a major shrine offering various blessings and has a legend about fulfilling dreams, which Yuna enthusiastically explained to Uryu. However, Uryu did not believe in such things. Then, the sisters brought up serious matters, wanting to discuss the future management of the shrine with Yomiko. Yomiko was not serious at all. She teased the 3 sisters, especially Yae, who she treated roughly. Then, Yomiko told them she had booked a nearby hot spring inn for them to relax in today. Uryu once again refused the invitation, as he needed to return to his studies. Moreover, he did not want to keep being involved with prophetic dreams. As he was about to leave the shrine, he saw the shrine maidens worshipping and realized Yomiko's capability to manage so many of them. Yae expressed a wish that their shrine could one day be as large. Asahi said it was possible since they were all disciples of Sister Yomiko, who then hugged them and patted their heads, creating a pleasant scene. However, Uryu sensed something was off and directly asked Yomiko in front of the sisters why she changed the topic when they wanted to discuss serious matters. Yomiko admitted she indeed did not want to hear what they planned to discuss, as it would be too burdensome for them. Yuna tried to argue, but Yomiko asked if they were truly committed to working wholeheartedly for the shrine in the future. The sisters were stunned, considering their studies. Yuna and Asahi had major exams, and Yae had to think about her career after university graduation. Their lives were not solely dedicated to priesthood, and they needed to think carefully about what they truly wanted to do. Yuna, however, declared her resolve to dedicate herself to the shrine for her family and the worshippers. Yomiko responded that responsibility alone was not enough. Asahi and Yae did not know what to say, and Yomiko advised them to think it over. As she was leaving, Uryu stopped her, feeling she was too cold. Although he had only been with the sisters for a short time, he could tell they genuinely loved the shrine and wondered how Yomiko, who knew them better, could not see this. Yomiko began to question Uryu, telling him that his decision was crucial to the survival of the shrine. If he refused to marry into the shrine, it might not last. This made everyone reflect on their situations. As dusk approached, Asahi suggested heading to the inn, while Yae wanted to be alone for a while. Uryu realized that he could not marry into the shrine as his dream was to enter medical school. As he was about to leave, Yuna suddenly collapsed, appearing foolish, just like in Uryu's dream. Meanwhile, Yomiko was on the phone with the elder, expressing her satisfaction with Uryu and planning to observe which of the 3 sisters was best suited to take over the future of the shrine. Asahi told Uryu that Yuna had fallen into a despondent state. Yae had disappeared, but that was not a concern for her as she was entering marathon mode. Thus, Yuna's care fell to Uryu. Unable to leave her in such a state, Uryu bought her a can of coffee, which she refused. He then bought red bean soup, which he accidentally dropped, deepening Yuna's gloom. Uryu comforted her, acknowledging her dedication to the shrine, but Yuna said her actions were merely her duty, unrelated to her desires. It became clear to Uryu that none of the sisters had explicitly stated their desires, yet this shouldn't strip them of their right to be shrine maidens. Unexpectedly, Uryu saw Yomiko hiding in the bushes watching Yuna. Caught, she claimed she was just taking a walk. However, Yuna suddenly disappeared, and Uryu found her by a waterfall with that same foolish expression, immersing herself in her own world. She started walking into the water with her clothes on. When Uryu pointed it out, she simply took off her pants and continued walking into the water. Uryu quickly stepped forward to stop her, their skin touching. He accidentally grabbed something soft, which snapped Yuna back to her senses. She then furiously beat him up. The 2 awkwardly returned to the shrine, with Yuna furiously lashing out at Uryu. She accused him of not studying hard, despite his wish to become a doctor, and of meddling in her and her sister's affairs. She mockingly questioned his self-awareness, suggesting he mistakenly thought Yae and Asahi liked him. This broke Uryu's defenses. He admitted to being a nosy person who felt good about himself. As he started praising his own actions, he explained that whether he worried about the sisters or helped them, it was because he chose to do so. Surprisingly, his honesty made Yuna laugh, especially when he loudly called himself a fool. This brought her out of her slump, and she realized that she also did her shrine duties because she wanted to, not because she had to. After Uryu counseled Yuna, Asahi returned from his run, both refreshed. Yet, Yae was still not back, which Yuna and Asahi were accustomed to, knowing she would return on her own. Uryu felt they lacked concern for their sister, but Asahi teased him about his fondness for Yae, causing Uryu to blush and drop the subject. By evening, with Yae still away, Uryu found her by the river, sighing. He playfully acted cool, claiming he had foreseen her being there, which was true due to his predictive dreams. Despite his abilities, he couldn't leave Yae alone outside at night, so he joined her with a book. Yae, impressed by his gentleness, moved closer to watch him solve problems, quickly pointing out a mistake. It turned out Yae was skilled in mental arithmetic. Upon checking, Uryu realized his error and gained more insight into Yae's talents. She mentioned having learned many arts as a child, including tea ceremony, flower arranging, and martial arts, giving her many future paths to choose from. Yet, her expression showed hesitation, possibly overwhelmed by the choices. She asked Uryu which path she should take: designer, mathematician, or marrying someone and inheriting a shrine. Before Uryu could answer, a sudden gust made both tumble into the river. Yae quickly stood up, and Uryu, feeling cold, went to soak in a hot spring in the three sisters' bathing area. Yae explained the situation to Uryu, prompting Yuna to ask if there was something between her and Uryu. Yae denied it, but questioned Yuna about her own interactions with Uryu, which made Yuna blush and deny anything as well. Feeling guilty for causing Uryu's fall, Yae was advised by Asahi to join Uryu in the bath as an apology and a way to deepen their relationship, leading her to actually do it. When Uryu heard the older sister's voice outside, his mind immediately conjured up some strange thoughts. After snapping back to reality, he harshly scolded himself and began looking for a place to hide. When Yae entered with shampoo, she found Uryu holding a flower pot in front of his face, puzzled by his actions. Uryu candidly explained that he thought Yae was also coming in to join him, which made Yae laugh and call him a little pervert before she just left the shampoo and walked out. Now, Uryu has completely given up struggling. Since everything in his dreams comes true, he decided to focus on learning more. Looking up, he saw Yae standing in front of a vending machine, reminding himself to stay focused. After half an hour of learning, he stretched and noticed Yae was still there, troubled by too many choices and unsure of what she really wanted. Yae recalled a woman telling her in her childhood not to overthink, as her life was already decided and everything would be prepared for her. Despite disliking this, Yae seemed unconsciously swayed by others in her life. Uryu, growing impatient, made a choice for her and realized that despite her mature and independent appearance, she was essentially as indecisive and insecure as a child. So, he told Yae that he would find her instantly when she disappeared and guide her when she lost her way, so she shouldn't worry. Unexpectedly comforted by her younger brother, Yae turned around and stuffed a drink into Uryu's collar, a fruit milk for him to drink, asserting that she must make her own decisions. When it was time to sleep, another problem arose. The shrine had prepared only one room for them. Asahi teasingly suggested Uryu could lie next to him, which earned him a stern reprimand from Yuna. However, the three sisters knew Uryu was a pure-hearted virgin and felt very safe sharing a room with him. Even so, suggesting Uryu sleep in a closet seemed too cruel. Asahi then proposed that everyone stay up all night, which was unanimously vetoed by the others. Tomorrow they still need to tell their master their decision. This made Uryu curious. He asked the three what their dreams were and how they planned to respond to Master Yomiko tomorrow. Now that they were family, he felt they should open up and talk. Asahi, however, deliberately misinterpreted "open up" and shifted the topic. Yae suggested having a pillow fight, and ultimately, Uryu was left unclear about their thoughts. The next morning, he woke up sandwiched between two beautiful women, unsurprised by the scene. He calmly covered Yuna and Yae with blankets, then went outside and encountered Asahi, who was up early looking at information about a prestigious Tokyo school. It turned out that Asahi had been scouted by that school during a track meet last year. They offered her admission as an athletic scholarship student, meaning she would move to Tokyo alone next year, planning to leave the shrine. Asahi had told their grandfather but not her sisters, fearing they would worry. She also wanted Uryu to keep it a secret. Despite this, Uryu felt that Yae and Yuna would support her if they knew. Asahi was actually afraid to tell them because of this. Uryu was speechless with these troublesome issues, knowing they had to tell Yomiko soon and they should inform the sisters before that. During their argument, both fell to the ground, with Uryu accidentally landing on Asahi. She took the opportunity to snap photos and threatened to use them to keep Uryu from revealing her plans to move to Tokyo for school. Uryu sternly refused, even as his nose bled again, surprised by how developed Asahi was for her age. Just then, Yae and Yuna came out. Seeing them, Asahi ran off. Yuna naturally assumed Uryu had done something to her sister. Uryu confessed two things. First, that Asahi had knocked him over, and he had seen her disheveled. He then revealed the second thing Asahi desperately wanted to hide, only to discover Yae and Yuna already knew. They knew Asahi was clumsy and stubborn from a young age, yet she could accomplish things on her own. Therefore, they should just watch her choose her own path and cheer her on. Uryu, however, countered, what if it's not the path she truly wants to take? Regardless, they would respect Asahi's wishes, but her absence would definitely leave her sisters feeling lonely. Meanwhile, Asahi went out for a run to escape, but soon the trio cornered her. Realizing Uryu had betrayed her trust, Asahi was upset. Uryu felt that leaving his important family members without saying anything would only cause pain later. After speaking, he stepped aside to give the sisters a chance to talk. Yae and Yuna expressed that they would support Asahi no matter her choice. Then, Yae tied a red string around Asahi's wrist, and the sisters held hands, connecting closely in this manner. In that moment, Asahi felt her sister's love, knowing they would miss her just as much as she would miss them. So, she decided not to go to Tokyo, and chose a high school closer to home, wanting the three sisters to always be together. Yae and Yuna had said they would support her no matter what, but their joy now said it all. They didn't want Asahi to leave. Uryu watched the sisters embrace, feeling relieved. As Asahi relaxed, she fell asleep and woke up on Uryu's back. She now understood Uryu's kindness and felt good about being cared for by someone who was like a brother to her. Uryu had an even more outrageous dream this time. He woke up to see the three sisters all grown up, with Asahi already 22 years old. Most importantly, tomorrow was the day all four of them were to get married, a promise Uryu himself had made after obtaining his medical and clergy qualifications to marry all three sisters. Uryu woke up from the dream terrified, only to see the sisters again, thankfully in their usual forms. They were still at the shrine run by their sister Yomiko, but she had gone on a date with Mahiru. It turns out that Uryu staying at the Kanjin shrine was Yomiko's suggestion. Initially, Mahiru asked her to help find a place that could take in Uryu. Yomiko knew that the priest of Kanjin shrine was looking for a son-in-law, so they sent Uryu there. Both viewed Uryu and the three sisters as if they were their own children. Mahiru's relationship with Uryu goes without saying, and the three sisters were trained by Yomiko herself. When their mother died 6 years ago, Yomiko came to pay her respects to the deceased priestess and asked the old man what his plans were for the shrine. The old man wanted to keep the shrine running on a very small scale, unsure of how long it could continue. Yomiko felt this was a pity. Just then, the voices of the three sisters were heard outside, and they squeezed in, requesting Yomiko to take them as apprentices. Thus, they began their training at the moon god shrine. However, all three were clumsy. They couldn't even dance properly at first and were gradually trained by Yomiko, starting with the simplest bow, a gesture of utmost respect requiring a 90-degree bend. Yomiko had them maintain this posture for 3 minutes. There were many difficulties, and Asahi, often making mistakes, was scolded by Yomiko, which brought her to tears. Yomiko felt remorseful after the training, reflecting on her harshness, considering that Asahi was still such a young child. While Yomiko was pondering how to instruct them properly, she saw Asahi assert with determination that this hardship was nothing compared to their mother's struggles. Yae and Yuna also wanted to work hard for the shrine cherished by their mother, deciding to practice fiercely at home to surprise Sister Yomiko. Thus, step by step, the three sisters and Yomiko grew together. However, Yomiko later questioned whether learning to be priestesses at such a young age was truly happiness for them. Unnoticed, the sisters graduated, tearfully saying goodbye to Yomiko, telling her that she was like a mother to them. On the other side, the three sisters also told Uryu about their training at the moon god shrine. They said they had such a great time with Yomiko that after their training ended, they started to feel very lonely as they saw less of Sister Yomiko. Sometimes they wanted to visit her at the shrine, but they worried about bothering her. Yomiko was indeed troubled. The old man had asked her to choose the sister most suitable to inherit the shrine, but she felt it was fine, even if none of them took it over. She just wanted them to pursue their own happiness. Meanwhile, Mahiru and Uryu faced the same issue with Yomiko and the sisters, and came to the same conclusion, to be honest with each other. Even though they weren't related by blood, they already considered each other family. Thus, Yomiko arranged to meet the three sisters and Uryu at Tsukihashi Bridge that evening. Under the beautiful moonlight, she quietly waited for their answer about their future dreams. Although tonight's matter didn't concern Uryu, he couldn't help but worry about what the unpredictable sisters would say. Surprisingly, all three raised their hands wanting to inherit the shrine. Asahi gave up her dream of running marathons, and Yai and Yuna did the same. Each sister hoped the other two could pursue true happiness, not realizing that being together and running the shrine was their greatest joy. After they had seriously considered it, they all bowed deeply to Yomiko at 90 degrees, happy with their decision. Suddenly, Uryu made a teasing comment, saying the sisters were unreliable and that the real problem was those who let them be. As their teacher, Yomiko would have to spend more time looking after them. Instantly, the sisters realized Uryu was speaking up for them because they had just mentioned not spending enough time with Sister Yomiko, and she felt the same. Since they were still immature, she planned to retrain them properly and would check on them at Kanjin Shrine from time to time. If Yai and the others had any other issues, they could always come to her for advice or even just visit. That would truly be a happy ending for everyone. However, the next moment, Yomiko posed another question. So all three of you want to inherit the shrine. Does that mean you all accept Uryu as a son-in-law? Now it was Uryu's turn to answer. Yomiko had told him that if he refused to marry into the family, the shrine might struggle to survive. Uryu had already considered this issue. He pulled out his phone and showed the sisters a group photo of the institution's children. The oldest child, apart from himself, was very stable, and the second oldest was very gentle. Overall, they were all good kids. Although there was an age gap between them and Asahi, these were the only men Uryu could introduce now. The three sisters were speechless. Uryu didn't want to be the son-in-law himself, so he was making do with his brothers. Mahiru, who had watched Uryu grow up, knew that Uryu had lost his only family at a very young age, which made it hard for him to get close to others. However, once he overcame this challenge, he was more reliable than anyone else. Uryu couldn't give up his own dreams like the three sisters had. He still planned to be a doctor, but as long as they were family, he would still support the sisters. Yomiko was satisfied with Uryu's answer. The sisters then started making various demands for a son-in-law. Asahi wanted someone wealthy, Yuna wanted someone devout, and Yai thought Uryu's brother was fine. Asahi, after some thought, realized that Uryu was the easiest to bully. This made Yuna panic, shouting that she was the one inheriting the shrine, so she should be the one to marry Uryu in the worst case. Yai and Asahi quickly offered to let each other take the role. The three sisters argued noisily again. Asahi even suggested that all three of them marry Uryu. Amidst their bickering, they all fell to the ground and saw the huge full moon hanging in the air. It is said that on a full moon night, walking on a rainbow lit by moonlight can make dreams come true. The bridge beneath them also turned into a rainbow bridge. Could Asahi's recent suggestion actually come true? Uryu was practicing shouting the names of the three sisters. After spending so much time together, he had never called them by name face to face. Just as he finally got it right, the three sisters were right beside him, watching, leaving Uryu extremely embarrassed. Spring break flew by, and today was the start of the new school term. Listening to the sisters discuss school matters, Uryu was figuring out how to call out their names. Before he could, Asahi suddenly asked him which school he was transferring to. Uryu forgot the name of the school. Sure, it wouldn't be the same one as Yuna since she attended a girls' school. Such scenarios only happen in comics. However, after Uryu left, Yai remembered that Yuna's school was turning co-ed starting this year. Coincidentally, Uryu and Yuna ended up in the same class, a twist of fate indeed. Once class ended, the girls crowded around Uryu, curious about various things since he was the only boy and quite handsome. Soon, Yuna pulled him to the stairwell, ordering him not to tell anyone about their living together. Although Uryu thought it was unnecessary, he agreed because Yuna, blushing, said she would be troubled by any strange rumors. Uryu had no plans to get involved with Yuna at school, as his focus was on studying to get into Kyoto University's medical school. At the end of the day, the class president, who ran a dumpling shop and was a good friend of Yuna's, forcefully brought Yuna over to greet Uryu. She wanted to look after Uryu, the new student, but Yuna was unusually cold, puzzling the class president, who knew her as a warm-hearted person who wouldn't ignore a struggling new student. When Uryu casually inquired, the class president mistakenly thought he was interested in Yuna, her academically and socially prominent friend, despite Yuna's poor English. The previous school festival where Yuna and her sisters danced had made her even more popular, yet Uryu felt Yuna was very different at school compared to at home. Thinking about it makes sense, considering he has two unreliable sisters at home. The class president noticed Uryu seemed to care a lot about Yuna and advised her to be mentally prepared since her best friend was considered a high-class flower. Uryu had no interest. Otherwise, he would have made a move long ago. He then went to the restroom alone, and the next class was physical education. When Uryu returned and opened the classroom door, he saw a group of girls changing and made eye contact with Yuna instantly, causing his nose to bleed. He quickly shut the door and apologized. He wondered why the students changed in the classroom, remembering it used to be a girls' school. Uryu's biggest worry was that Yuna would publicly embarrass him, potentially ruining his first day of school. Fortunately, Yuna just gave him a disdainful look, and the other girls didn't care. But then, Yuna whispered harsh insults to him, making him worry about his future school life. The next morning, Uryu woke up early to make lunchboxes, continuing to practice calling the three sisters' names and prepared one for each sister. Yuna seemed still upset about yesterday's events, but Asahi and Yae were distracted by Uryu's lunchboxes. Even Yuna seemed impressed. Since their mother passed away, the three had not brought lunchboxes. Yuna would eat dumplings. Asahi would buy hamburger lunchboxes from the convenience store, and Yae would only eat white rice. Now, with Uryu, the health of the three was at least guaranteed. Uryu also promised to prepare lunchboxes for them in the future. Just entering the school in the morning, Uryu ran into the class president and Yuna. Yuna pretended not to know Uryu and walked past him. The class president couldn't help but complain that Yuna used to buy dumplings from her shop for lunch, but today she didn't. She asked Uryu if he knew why, and he immediately answered that he barely knew Yuna himself. At lunch, Yuna confidently opened the lunchbox Uryu prepared for her. The class president noticed that the dishes looked exactly like Uryu's. Both Uryu and Yuna panicked. Realizing he couldn't pass it off as a coincidence, Uryu quickly finished his lunchbox so no one could see the dishes, but the class president grew more suspicious, feeling they were hiding something. At night, Uryu washed dishes while worrying about what to do next. School felt like being a spy. Unexpectedly, Yuna appeared beside him. Uryu took the chance to apologize, admitting he had been careless. He said he wouldn't make her lunch anymore if she didn't like it. However, Yuna praised his lunch and asked him to continue making them, feeling guilty about her previous demands. Luckily, Uryu didn't mind and planned to slightly vary the dishes next time. Asahi and Yae then made various demands without hesitation. The lunch issue was finally resolved, but Uryu started worrying about how to naturally call their names. Surprisingly, on his way home, he bumped into the three sisters walking together despite not attending the same school. Their bond seemed strong, but Uryu had no plans to join them. Just then, Tsuruyama called out to him. They hadn't seen each other since school ended. They caught up, recalling that Tsuruyama had left the institution 5 years ago and spoke well of her foster parents. Now, Uryu had also left, and he had changed a lot. After teasing Uryu about living with 3 charming shrine maidens, Tsuruyama noticed a hint of bragging in his tone. Just as Tsuruyama was about to invite Uryu, they heard Yuna's voice rejecting someone. The sisters were surrounded by people who recognized them from a viral dance video at a festival. Despite their refusals, the crowd kept taking photos and even some rowdy guys invited them to sing. Uryu wanted to help, but remembered Yuna's warning not to reveal their acquaintance publicly. Unable to watch them being harassed, Uryu rushed into the crowd, loudly called out the sisters' names, and pulled them across the street to safety. Tsuruyama watched as Uryu ran off. The sisters reached a safe place, almost like a public elopement. Yae noticed Uryu openly using their names, causing his face to turn red. He was still that bashful, innocent man. Uryu had a dream today, but it wasn't a prophetic one. Instead, he dreamt about his childhood. In the dream, he saw a girl sitting alone on a bench. Just as he was about to ask her name, he woke up. Yae then dragged him to a club gathering. Yae, who hugs everyone when drunk, was a concern for Yuna and Asahi. They feared she might be taken advantage of, so they sent Uryu to protect her. At the party, Yae was indeed pressured to drink heavily. In desperation, Uryu pretended to be her boyfriend and rescued her from the men. Yae didn't deny it, and even told her friends that Uryu was from the medical department at Kyoto University. Coincidentally, there was a senior from the same department at the party. Fortunately, this senior, a good friend of Yae's, already knew about their ruse. Uryu gave a wry smile, trying to get along with the senior, but Makoto slapped him away. She disapproved of Uryu acting as Yae's guardian and told him to stop being overprotective and just stand by. Facing criticism from the senior, Uryu had no choice but to accept it, as he had started the boyfriend lie. On their way back, Uryu casually asked Yae if she had ever had a boyfriend. given her popularity. Yae admitted she had many in the past and was always ready to get engaged, not even remembering how many. Though she hadn't met any of them, Uryu sensed her sadness and offered to keep pretending to be her boyfriend to ward off odd characters. Yae was touched by Uryu's kindness, but said he couldn't make her happy as he cooked too little. Uryu felt his earlier sentiment was wasted. Later, Uryu found a wallet in the corridor, recalling he had seen it before. That day, he and Yae had helped a lost little girl. Yae bought a crepe to comfort the child, carrying this wallet. Uryu stayed with the girl until her parents arrived. The parents thanked Uryu and Yae, with Yae feeling lucky that the girl had met Uryu, who would surely help her. Uryu couldn't resist checking the license inside the wallet he found. He pulled out a driver's license, but the name on it was not Yae's. Instead, it belonged to someone else he had heard of. This left Uryu confused. Eager to understand the situation, he ran to Yae's room to ask her directly, but no one was there. Uryu started to scare himself, wondering if Yae never existed. Just then, he heard voices in the living room. It turned out Yae was insisting that Yuna and Asahi join her for a walk. Both were very sleepy, but Yae convinced them about the joys of staying up late. They became interested in seeing the scenery, indulging in forbidden sweets and junk food, and visiting a shrine. Yuna and Asahi were persuaded. Yae immediately called Makoto to drive them. Surprisingly, Makoto arrived quickly but seemed to be deliberately antagonizing Uryu. After some persuasion by Yae, she allowed Uryu to ride in her car. With no other choice, Uryu joined their mischief and later returned the wallet to Yae, expressing a desire to talk to her alone. This sparked some thoughts among the others. They went to a riverbank where Yae said there were usually many fireflies. However, none appeared that night. Uryu wanted to use the moment to talk to Yae, but Makoto suggested they might have better luck upstream and took Yae and Yuna with her. Only Asahi stayed to keep Uryu company. While Uryu was absorbed in his book, Asahi suddenly asked him if he preferred large or small breasts, embarrassing the inexperienced Uryu. She then asked if he liked long or short hair, but what she really wanted to know was whether Uryu preferred her or her sister Yae. Just then, Asahi saw some fireflies over the river, but Uryu, looking where she indicated, saw only the reflection of the moonlight on the water. Disappointed, Asahi couldn't understand how moonlight could compare to fireflies. Recalling a time when she messed up applying lipstick while dressing as a shrine maiden, Yae had shown her how to do it properly, making Asahi realize she couldn't yet match her sister Yae's maturity. Yae is like a firefly, attracting everyone with her charm and drawing them to her side. How could Uryu be any different? Therefore, Asahi suggested they also go look for fireflies. After all, watching a scene that mimics fireflies is quite boring. However, Uryu's words instantly soothed Asahi's insecurities. While fireflies are indeed beautiful, the common scenery has its own unique appeal, which he also enjoys. Just then, Yae and the others returned having found the fireflies. Uryu was about to call Asahi over when she pretended to sleep on his shoulder. Seeing this, the other three did not disturb them, allowing Asahi to quietly enjoy her time alone with Uryu. After watching the fireflies, the group went to a convenience store. Makoto offered to treat them to her favorite snacks, excluding Uryu. At the convenience store, Uryu sent Yae a message asking to talk alone. Makoto noticed and turned off Yae's phone. Meanwhile, Yuna declined Makoto's offer and stood idly by the freezer, clearly wanting something but too shy to say it. Realizing she was making others worry about her, Yuna became despondent. Uryu, feeling helpless, bought the ice creams Yuna had been looking at. When Yuna stepped outside, she found Uryu crouched by a pile of popsicles, all the flavors she wanted. Uryu claimed he impulsively bought too many, and they would melt if not eaten. Hearing it was a request for help, Yuna no longer hesitated and forgot her earlier concerns. Makoto, witnessing all this, decided that next time, as a future senior, she would treat Uryu to whatever he wanted. Uryu, sensing that Senior Makoto might know about Yae's situation, directly asked her. Makoto did not deny it, but advised him to forget the matter. Yet Yae had already agreed to talk at the Inari Shrine, making Uryu even more curious why Makoto would say that a person named Miyoko no longer exists in this world. Uryu secretly flirted with Yae behind Yuna and Asahi's backs. They even planned to meet alone at the Inari Shrine, which was deserted at night. As they excitedly walked into the shrine, Uryu was stopped by Makoto, who urged him not to inquire about a person named Miyoko, especially from Yae. He warned Uryu that getting involved could jeopardize his dreams forever. However, Uryu ignored the advice. That night at the shrine, with only a few of them around, the atmosphere turned eerie. Yae decided to play a ghost, challenging them to a test of courage. Although inappropriate for a shrine maiden, they could take separate paths to the mountaintop. This provided Uryu with a chance to be alone with Yae, and he immediately volunteered to pair up with her. Asahi and Yuna were shocked at Uryu's sudden closeness to Yae. Makoto, clearly annoyed, opted not to join them and returned to the car to sleep. Realizing Makoto might be trying to interfere secretly, Uryu became suspicious. As they prepared to depart, Asahi suddenly clung to Uryu's arm, wanting to be in his group. Makoto quickly approved, creating a bizarre scene of Yae and Asahi competing for Uryu, which shocked Yuna. Imagining inappropriate scenarios, Yuna decided she had to protect her sisters from Uryu by joining his group herself. Seeing the sisters argue, they resorted to the traditional method of rock, paper, scissors to decide the groups. Ultimately, Uryu ended up with Yuna, and Yae with Asahi. Uryu and Yae were disappointed by the lost opportunity for alone time. Meanwhile, the atmosphere between Yae and Asahi turned strange. When Yae asked Asahi if she liked Uryu, Asahi was startled and accidentally stepped back, falling down. Yae quickly grabbed her arm to prevent the fall. The atmosphere between Uryu and Yuna wasn't great either. Yuna, ever the tsundere, still looked unfavorably upon Uryu. Despite Uryu being highly capable, doing chores, and making lunches for them, he couldn't change her view of him as a secretive, lecherous, faithless bad guy. Therefore, Yuna would never entrust her sisters to him. Just as she said this, a cat suddenly sprang from the bushes, startling Yuna into hiding behind Uryu and clutching his clothes tightly. Seeing her fear, Uryu let her hold on. They proceeded up the mountain, one in front of the other. Uryu asked Yuna why she insisted on going up if she was scared. Yuna replied that the Inari shrine at night was the place closest to the gods, and she wanted to pray there in hopes of seeing her deceased mother, even if just for a moment. It sounded naive, but Uryu didn't mock her as usual, understanding the feeling of wanting to see someone. Since staying at the shrine, he had also experienced several supernatural events, sometimes wondering if perhaps a deity was watching him. Right after he spoke, his phone rang. It was Asahi, crying, telling them that her sister Yae had fallen down. They rushed to the scene where Makoto had already administered first aid. The urgent issue was that Yae had fallen while trying to save Asahi. Asahi cried, blaming herself. Yuna comforted her, while Makoto, seeing them arrive, prepared to descend the cliff to look for Yae. The cliff was pitch black, and there was a real risk of losing contact. Uryu wanted to stop her, but seeing Makoto's trembling body, he simply patted her shoulder to comfort her, and then decided to go down himself. After all, he had found Yae so many times before. Holding his phone, Uryu slowly slid down the cliff into a forest, calling out for Yae. Suddenly, he spotted a fox mask and followed it in a direction, briefly glimpsing a girl he had met in his childhood. The next second, Uryu emerged from the forest, transformed back into his childhood self, and not at the Inari shrine. On his back was a backpack, and just as this thought formed, another took over. Isn't it normal for me to carry a backpack? It seems that the older Uryu has merged with his younger self. Just as he was about to return to help Sister Mahiru care for the children, he noticed a little girl nearby behaving oddly. Her eyes lacked any sparkle, and she mechanically performed strange actions. Uryu approached and spoke to her, but she didn't know where she lived and only said her name was Miyoko. Uryu then decided to take her to the police station, but heard her stomach growling with hunger. He took her to a convenience store, selected some snacks for her, and handed her a coin. Miyoko looked at the money as if she had never seen it before and had never bought anything on her own. She didn't even know how to eat by herself and waited for Uryu to feed her, as she had always been fed by others. However, once Uryu taught her, she ate on her own, and her face lit up with amazement, declaring it the tastiest thing she had ever eaten, although she couldn't remember what she had eaten before. Clearly, she was a sheltered young lady from a wealthy family, and she found everything Uryu talked about very interesting. Uryu spent the day with her, and in the evening, as the girl turned back, the name Yae suddenly popped into his mind. But then he wondered, who is Yae? As night fell, Uryu realized it was time to go to the police station, but the people to pick up the girl had already arrived. Seeing the group of men in suits, Uryu was shocked. She indeed belonged to a wealthy family. Fortunately, someone had come to collect her and he was ready to leave peacefully. However, to his surprise, the girl struggled. She didn't want to go back with these people. The bodyguard relayed a message from the lady that the young miss had missed today's flower arrangement, tea ceremony, abacus, judo, and aikido lessons, and she would have to make up for all of them upon her return and avoid similar incidents in the future. Hearing this, the girl reluctantly gave in. But at that moment, Uryu suddenly remembered his times with Yae. No wonder she always seemed disconnected from worldly affairs. So, he immediately grabbed the young girl Yae's hand and ran away with her. At that moment, Uryu finally realized that he had changed Miyoko's life, changed Yae's life. In front of her bodyguards, Uryu unexpectedly grabbed Yae, and they eloped. By the time the bodyguards reacted, the two kids had already hidden themselves. After the guards left, Uryu and Yae peeked out from a wooden box. Although unclear about Yae's family issues, Uryu was convinced her family didn't love her. Otherwise, they wouldn't just scold her after she'd been missing for a day instead of being relieved she was safe. At this point, Uryu suddenly remembered he hadn't returned home either, and his sister Mahiru must be worried. Yae laughed at his flustered state, the first time Uryu had seen her smile all day. Realizing this, Yae quickly covered her mouth, denying she laughed because she would be scolded for it at home. Understanding why Yae ran away, Uryu took her to his secret hideout on a mountain. From there, they could overlook the city, illuminated by colorful neon lights. The city looked beautiful, and up there, no one could hear them shout. Whatever Yae laughed or said remained a secret between them. Yae then shouted, "Die, you old hag," venting all her frustrations about her mother. Despite being a child, Yae had to learn so much daily and deal with arranged marriage talks with strangers. She yearned to play, wear cute dresses, try new foods, decide her own future, and have more freedom. Uryu finally understood why Yae was the way she was, always longing for freedom. But once she had it, she didn't know what to do, and felt lost. After Yae vented, Uryu prepared to leave, but she grabbed his clothes. Seeing her reluctance, he reassured her not to look so sad because she would have her freedom. No matter how many times she lost her way, he would always find her. Yae smiled again. Uryu snapped back to reality, where he had indeed found Yae asleep against a tree, her shirt button undone, which suddenly made the atmosphere awkward. Concerned that Yae might feel embarrassed upon waking, Uryu awkwardly tried to fix the button. Just as he touched it, Yae woke up. Uryu awkwardly explained himself, and then sent a message to Yuna and the others to let them know they were safe. He and Yae then rejoined the group. With some alone time, Yae asked if he had something important to tell her. Uryu brought up the name on the driver's license. He recalled a girl with the same name from his childhood and wondered if she was the current Yae. Without hesitation, Yae admitted it was her. Uryu then suddenly shared his embarrassing past. He had wet the bed while in elementary school. To keep it secret, he would hide the wet bedding in the bathroom at night, but his sister Mahiru found out and scolded him. It was a part of his past Uryu least liked to remember. Yae was baffled by his story. Uryu felt that since he knew her secret, it was only fair to share his own. Seeing Yae now lively and spirited, compared to her troubled past, reassured him. Yae recalled her own painful memories. Not long after being taken back, her mother kicked her out to protect the family's reputation from her disobedience. She ended up at Kanjin Shrine, where the priestess adopted her and gave her the new name Yae. There, she grew up with two other girls as sisters, each seeking their own happiness. Changing her name symbolized her rebirth, and meeting Uryu was pivotal in her ability to change. Soon, Uryu and Yae met up with everyone. Asahi and Yuna were affectionate with their sister, and Uryu told Makoto that he knew Yae was Miyoko. Although Makoto mentioned that being involved would jeopardize his dreams, he wouldn't ignore Yae's troubles. Makoto was annoyed by Uryu's boyfriend-like tone, but also held expectations for him to genuinely change Yae's fate. After dropping everyone off at the shrine, Makoto said his goodbyes. Remembering school the next day, Yuna and Asahi hurried to bed. Yae had already returned to her room when she suddenly realized she might be developing feelings for Uryu. It looked like she was in for a long night. The weather has been getting hotter recently. Uryu sweats profusely just studying in his room. Yae, who was nearby, offered to bring him a fan later. Uryu was startled, wondering when Yae had entered his room and remarking on her familiarity. Yae told him not to mind it and to consider it a sibling-like gesture. She then teased Uryu, asking if he was looking at her with a shady gaze. Uryu involuntarily followed her lead, but quickly turned away when he realized it. Yae then asked him to pose for a sketch, which Uryu didn't mind as he continued to study. However, he noticed that since that night, Yae had become increasingly clingy, always wanting to be with him. Uryu couldn't help but think, could she have feelings for me? But then he remembered that Yae had recently friend-zoned him, and they were family after all. He decided it was all just sibling interaction. Unbeknownst to him, Yae had already completed an excellent sketch of him, writing on it, "Your serious profile is so handsome, I like it." Suddenly, Yuna and Asahi burst in, scolding Yae for being in a man's room for too long, calling it unladylike. Yae explained she was just doing homework, but the sisters insisted on staying to supervise her. The most oblivious there was Yuna. She noticed that since that night something was off, especially with Yae, who had been getting noticeably closer to Uryu. Then, Yuna and Asahi saw the sketch. Yuna immediately texted Yae, asking if she was dating Uryu. Yae didn't deny it, and asked back, "Does it look like that?" She then said they weren't dating yet since Uryu was busy with entrance exams and she would confess later. Relieved, Yuna and Asahi's relief was short-lived, as Yae declared she would marry Uryu and inherit the shrine. The sisters were shocked. Just then, Uryu found them and kicked all three out, unaware of the explosive conversation he had just missed. Tanabata is approaching fast, and Asahi's Kanjin shrine is naturally preparing for the Tanabata festival. They distributed wish strips to the students, who could write their desires on them. Once class ended, everyone began discussing their wishes. The middle schoolers' wishes were simple, such as becoming rich overnight or being with someone they liked. When asked about her wish, Asahi grandly claimed that fulfilling everyone's wishes was her wish, but she was quickly mocked by her rival Hanahasu, a wealthy heiress and Asahi's competitor. They were both set to participate in an upcoming marathon. Hanahasu's life seemed smooth sailing, making it hard to imagine she had any wishes to ask from the gods. She revealed her wish strip, which said she wanted a decisive victory in the marathon. Although the marathon was close to the festival date, Asahi was confident she could handle both, especially with her family's expectations. Losing to Hanahasu was not an option. Sure enough, Asahi's wish was also to win the marathon. Returning home in the evening, Asahi found the shrine already festive with Tanabata decorations. Her sisters were decorating with Uryu. Yuna was currently obsessed with a drama about long-distance relationships and eagerly wanted to make precious wishes for couples separated by distance. Uryu was curious about Yae's wish, but she refused to reveal it, though her strip read, "I hope to find a destined partner." At that moment, Asahi returned with 4 completed wish strips. Uryu warned her not to be greedy, as it might lead to not getting anything. Yae and Yuna assured Asahi that they would all be there to cheer for her at the marathon the day after tomorrow, with Uryu joining them. Asahi imagined various scenarios, secretly delighted. On the eve of the race, however, the teacher announced that the marathon was postponed due to heavy rain and rescheduled for July 7th, Tanabata. Although this gave more practice time, it clashed with the Tanabata festival. Yae and Yuna, busy with the festival, regretfully realized they couldn't cheer for Asahi at the race. They felt guilty and were scolded by Asahi, who told them to focus on the festival and fulfill their roles as shrine maidens, who bring joy to everyone. Hearing Asahi speak like that, Uryu felt reassured. After Asahi went out for her run, he comforted Yae and Yuna not to worry, promising to handle everything. Asahi was to go to the race location a day early, and only Uryu had time to be there to cheer for her. This made Yae somewhat envious because Asahi would have Uryu all to herself. Although Asahi verbally expressed annoyance, she was already imagining scenarios where Uryu showed care for her. However, they did not go together. Uryu left early in the morning. Now Yae and Yuna were busy preparing for the Tanabata festival. In a fleeting moment, Asahi felt like she saw her own figure following her sisters, but had to swallow her disappointment. Her performance in the race was not the best. She started off leading, but gradually fell behind. Asahi reminded herself to ignore the festival and focus on running. Yet the gap between her and Hanahasu widened, which also started to worry Hanahasu. When Hanahasu saw her family cheering for her, she pushed forward with renewed energy, further unsettling Asahi. Unexpectedly, at that moment, Asahi heard her sister Yomiko's voice cheering her on. This was Uryu's plan, and he was busy streaming a video while catching up to Asahi to show her Yae and Yuna in the video, all cheering for her remotely. Encouraged by so many people, Asahi finally found the strength to catch up. Meanwhile, thanks to Yae and Yuna's efforts, the Tanabata festival was proceeding smoothly. In the evening, the three took the train home, with Asahi already asleep on Yomiko's lap, having won the championship as she wished, largely thanks to Uryu's efforts. Uryu was grateful that Yomiko could find time to cheer for Asahi, and fortunately, the Moon God Shrine's Tanabata festival was held on the lunar calendar, allowing Yomiko to attend. Yomiko was also pleased with Uryu's efforts, affirming his earlier promises. Both the Tanabata festival and the marathon had concluded successfully, relaxing Uryu's mood. Yet, as Yomiko murmured, "Is it really so?" Logically, they parted ways. Uryu and Asahi walked home together, with Asahi openly expressing her gratitude to Uryu. They thought that would be the end of the events, but unexpectedly, Uryu found himself caught in a time loop. Uryu woke up and found himself back on June 28th, despite confirming from the calendar that it was supposed to be July 8th. Yesterday was Tanabata, so today should have been July 8th. Was everything he experienced over the last few days just a dream? Puzzled and unsure of what was happening, Uryu went about his tasks based on his memories from before. It was clear that Yae and Yuna had no memory of those days, but Asahi's expression was off. Uryu didn't need to ask. He pulled Asahi aside to explain the situation. When Uryu mentioned he remembered too, Asahi clung to him as if finding her anchor. With no clues about what was happening, they decided to relive the days according to their previous memories. Asahi won the marathon again, but they still didn't reach July 8th and returned to June 28th instead. Uryu recalled that these supernatural occurrences had only involved him until now, but involving Asahi this time suggested the key to breaking the cycle might lie with her. The two significant events were the marathon and the Tanabata festival. Perhaps a change in Asahi's actions could end the loop. Surprisingly, Asahi wasn't panicked. She saw this as a great opportunity to fulfill many wishes. They began experimenting with various ideas. Besides winning the marathon, Asahi's second wish was to become a curvaceous, mature woman, though changing her physique quickly was unlikely. She playfully suggested Uryu help by massaging her, which he naturally refused. Her third wish was to learn touch typing to update the shrine's social media faster, but that also seemed unlikely to happen soon. Her final wish was for everyone's wishes to come true. Through their time together, Uryu realized that Asahi really wanted to participate in the Tanabata festival but never got the chance before the festivities ended. Since they were stuck in a loop, they decided to focus on the festival this time. Asahi hardly hesitated before expressing her desire to join everyone for the Tanabata festival, even though looping a few more times didn't bother her. After all, it was a unique chance to have Uryu all to herself. After careful consideration, Asahi decided to skip the marathon and focus on preparing for the Tanabata festival with her sisters, Yae and Yuna. Naturally, they respected Asahi's decision. Asahi had participated in many marathons before. During one in elementary school, Yae and Yuna wanted to cheer for her, but Asahi declined, not wanting them to make the trip on their rare day off. They stayed at the shrine, but Asahi felt somewhat disappointed. Nevertheless, she won first place, although Hanahasu, who came in second, was not satisfied. She knew Asahi hadn't run seriously. With her capability, she could have set a record. Losing to someone who wasn't giving their all frustrated Hanahasu even more. So she challenged Asahi, vowing to beat her one day when she was at full strength. Having decided to withdraw from the marathon, Asahi informed her coach at school the next day. Right after Asahi left, Hanahasu approached the coach too. Meanwhile, the third Tanabata festival with Uryu and Asahi was approaching. They had already made numerous preparations. Asahi proposed a contest called the Most Beautiful Shrine Maiden Sisters, where worshippers at the festival would hang colored notes representing the three sisters to see who's got the most. Yuna felt this was somewhat disrespectful to the deities, but understood if it helped the shrine thrive. Surprisingly, many people lined up in front of Yuna on the day of the festival, her fans declaring ongoing support. Yae and Asahi were also popular, although Yae, being straightforward, blurted out that she already had someone she liked. Luckily, her sisters quickly covered her mouth. Thanks to Asahi's planning, the festival was exceptionally lively. Yae was happy to work with Asahi, recalling how in their childhood, she often preferred running alone. During the festival, Uryu's childhood friend Tsuruyama also showed up, revealing a wish to get into Kyoto University's medical school. Interestingly, the part of the wish crossed out clearly had Uryu's name. When asked if he made a wish, Uryu hesitated, as he had always been skeptical about such things. He believed that only he could make his wishes come true. Hearing this, Tsuruyama decided to write down her own wish to become a doctor at Kyoto University on her note. Because she wanted to pursue her goals with Uryu, the three sisters accepted Tsuruyama's note and promised to pray wholeheartedly for her. After the Tanabata festival ended, it was time to reveal the results. Surprisingly, the three sisters tied with the same number of votes, making them all first place. However, Uryu's note had not yet been hung, and this was the crucial vote. Asahi quickly snatched it from his hands and was satisfied to see that Uryu had written a wish for Asahi's dreams to come true. Yae and Yuna sensed something was amiss. They wondered why those two had been so close lately and suspected a secret. Asahi, instead of clarifying, teased that she indeed had a secret relationship with Uryu that she couldn't share with them, which led to Uryu getting a rough time from Yae and Yuna. Asahi walked away alone and unexpectedly encountered Hanahasu, who had also given up the marathon. Asahi invited her to write a note, but Hanahasu declined, saying her wish couldn't come true and left abruptly, dropping a note that read, "I want a real match with Asahi." Asahi felt conflicted, and the festival ended amid grand celebrations, but she and Uryu were still caught in a loop. Uryu was close to breaking down, unable to find useful information online. Asahi practiced typing blindfolded, but once Uryu removed the blindfold, her tear-stained eyes were revealed. Uryu comforted her, promising to be by her side, no matter how many cycles they endured. Yae witnessed this scene, became jealous, and complained to Yuna. Uryu had no time to explain, and thought of a new plan, to try and fulfill both Asahi's desires to compete in the marathon and enjoy the Tanabata festival simultaneously. Asahi seemed hesitant, but agreed. Thus, she became very busy during this period. Uryu also called Yomiko to explain the situation, hoping she would cheer for Asahi and provide some tips on the Tanabata festival project. Yomiko questioned Uryu in response. Is this really her wish? Hasn't it always been you making suggestions? Has Asahi ever expressed her true feelings? Enlightened by Yomiko's words, Uryu suddenly realized his mistake and immediately scrapped his previous idea, deciding to have a serious talk with Asahi again. Meanwhile, Asahi was also deeply examining her own feelings. The Tanabata festival and the marathon were like two ends of a scale. One side was her dream, and the other was her family. Initially, she had the opportunity to enter a Tokyo high school on a sports recommendation and even had the potential to become a national representative, as her coach mentioned. Asahi was thrilled when she first heard this, and her classmates congratulated her, remarking that they would not want to be separated from their families if in her position. Since then, Asahi became more hesitant and unsure about what she truly wanted. Just then, Hanahasu unexpectedly came to see her. Uryu, downstairs, heard a scream and immediately rushed to Asahi's room, only to witness a shocking scene. Uryu opened the door only to find his future wife mingling with another woman, but actually Hanahasu was just helping Asahi change into her sports gear, challenging her to a race then and there. After clearing up the misunderstanding, they headed to the empty track where Uryu acted as their referee. They were to run a 10-kilometer marathon, and the first to complete 5 laps would win. The stakes were high. The loser had to obey the winner. Hanahasu's condition for Asahi was that if she lost, she should give up running. At the referee's signal, both took off. Asahi questioned Hanahasu about her earlier comment. Hanahasu pointed out Asahi's recent lack of dedication. She hadn't beaten her personal record since spring and was about to surpass her. Hanahasu angrily declared that such an Asahi didn't deserve to be her rival and should just become her shrine maiden. Hanahasu had always aimed to surpass Asahi in marathons, but to Asahi, marathons seemed trivial. Resolved to end this relationship, Asahi promised to surpass her today. Unexpectedly, Hanahasu actually won. She gave up her obsession with Asahi, who now became obsessed with defeating Hanahasu, insisting on another race, blaming Hanahasu's distracting taunts during the race. Now, it was Asahi's turn to pin Hanahasu down, confessing that she had considered giving up marathons for the Shrine Festival, but couldn't. Choosing either caused her distress until Hanahasu's victory made her realize her true feelings. She was happy to be someone's goal, making marathons as special to her as serving at the shrine. Moved by these words, Hanahasu saw the Asahi she had admired. They agreed to race again on Tanabata at an official event, this time without Uryu's cheers, as Asahi needed to focus solely on competing with Hanahasu. Feeling unneeded, Uryu was upset, but Asahi still appreciated his constant support, patting his head and asking him to wait at home and take good care of her later. Hanahasu, observing this, wondered if the two had crossed the boundaries of siblings. Tanabata quickly arrived again, and Asahi successfully clinched the marathon championship. She posted a photo of her medal in the group chat. Meanwhile, Uryu and Asahi finally reached July 8th, breaking free from their cycle. To hide his embarrassment about past remarks, Uryu teased Asahi, asking if she was sad she couldn't monopolize him. Asahi seriously denied it, saying she now wanted to explore a future with Uryu. While they were flirting, Yuna caught them in the act and reminded them of the upcoming Tanabata festival preparations. It turned out that this year, the shrine would host both a Gregorian Tanabata festival on July 7th and a lunar Tanabata festival on August 7th, a solution proposed by Yomiko, likely to make up for Asahi's past regrets. Thus, Asahi handled all the promotional work for the latter festival. On the day, the 3 sisters, dressed as celestial weavers, attracted many visitors on the streets. Both elder sisters praised Asahi's promotional efforts, making her blush with embarrassment. Yae noticed Asahi's recent change, feeling she was increasingly embodying the younger sister role, as if a burden had been lifted. Asahi was surprised by her sister's perceptiveness, attributing her transformation to the loving support of her sisters. In the evening, Yomiko also joined them and accidentally let slip that the idea for the additional festival wasn't hers, but was instigated by Uryu. However, setting up an additional festival wasn't just about the shrine's efforts. efforts. It required support from sponsors, neighborhood associations, the shopping district, and influential people. Uryu had spent considerable time persuading them, fortunately achieving his desired outcome, essentially fulfilling Asahi's wishes. Embarrassed to express her gratitude to Uryu directly, Asahi awkwardly ran off. Uryu, however, thanked Yomiko sincerely and then asked her how many Tanabatas she had experienced. Yomiko, pretending not to understand, turned and returned to the shrine, complaining as she worshipped, "You still love playing pranks, don't you?" Suddenly, a girl wearing a fox mask appeared in front of her. Both Tanabata festivals concluded successfully. In the evening, the sisters invited Asahi to watch fireworks. Unexpectedly, there was still a festival tonight. The three sisters dressed in beautiful yukatas, turning heads wherever they went, yet no one dared to approach them. However, Asahi felt less popular than her sisters and walked ahead proudly, accidentally separating from them. Fortunately, Uryu found her in time and took her hand to rejoin the others. While waiting by the river for Yuna and Yae, Uryu used the moment alone to reflect on his actions. He admitted that he had imposed his own ideas on Asahi for his own satisfaction, acknowledging that she should solve those issues herself. Asahi also opened up, admitting that Uryu had helped guide her. Without him, she would still be hesitating and unable to see clearly. Uryu had shown her different possibilities, so they had faced the challenges together. Asahi's candid words surprised Uryu. Soon, beautiful fireworks began to burst across the sky, and they found themselves alone watching them. It was a romantic scene by the quiet river. However, Asahi knew Uryu only loved her as a sister and could never make his heart flutter like her sisters could. So, Asahi boldly kissed Uryu on the lips and confessed her feelings. "I like you, Uryu." Before Uryu could respond, Yae and Yuna arrived. Asahi ran to greet her sisters, leaving Uryu stunned. Later, the memory of that night would make Uryu panic, reminding himself that he needed to focus on his studies to get into Kyoto University's medical program. He went to check his mock exam scores, only to find he had a B grade, while Tsuruyama had an A. Tsuruyama gently mocked Uryu, saying he was no match for someone surrounded by beautiful girls. Frustrated, Uryu resolved to study harder, crumpling his score report and throwing it on the table before heading to Mahiru's place to visit graves with the children. Mahiru curiously asked Uryu whom he planned to marry and whether he would inherit the shrine. Uryu repeated his previous response, saying he had no special connection with the three shrine maidens. However, Mahiru had already heard from Yomiko that someone had expressed feelings for Uryu. Uryu, focused on his entrance exams, had no interest in romance. Mahiru didn't say much but advised him to consider his future. Having spent time at the shrine, Uryu had grown to respect the divine, learning appropriate gestures for different occasions, though he still struggled with praying to what he felt was an unseen presence. Instead, he wanted to become a doctor to save lives and spare children from praying to the deceased. He hoped the shrine would be preserved, but had no plans to take it over. That evening, Uryu returned to see the three sisters and their grandfather, lighting a fire for the Oban festival, guiding the ancestors returning home that night. Yae suggested Uryu greet his mother, but he mentioned he had already visited her grave and that she was gone. Yuna, removing her headband, insisted she was still present and with them, leading the sisters to pray for Uryu's mother, speaking well of him to her so she might protect him from above. Despite knowing the deceased are gone, a breeze made Uryu momentarily see his mother's figure, bringing him to tears. The sisters comforted him, and the grandfather, moved by the scene, felt it was time to reveal a secret about their family shrine. The three sisters were not related by blood. They came from different families, brought together by the previous shrine maiden who claimed to be their mother. Having seen a young Yae in his time travels, Uryu had guessed this and was unfazed. Yet, this made them similar in his eyes. Uryu considered the children at the orphanage his family, and the sisters cherished their bond beyond blood, a sign of good parenting. Although he had never met the former shrine maiden, Uryu believed she must have been a wonderful mother. After sharing these thoughts, Uryu left nonchalantly, knowing there were still chores to be done. Unexpectedly, Asahi came over to help. Seizing the moment, Uryu wanted to respond to her previous confession. Asahi had already guessed what he might say and wasn't expecting a response. She just wanted him to know how she felt. After hanging the laundry, Uryu went to help Yae clean her room, but found she had already done it herself. In the evening, Yuna was practicing her cooking skills alone, making a curry that even Uryu praised highly. However, because it was slow to make, she prepared extra to store for later. It turned out that the three sisters had seen Uryu's report card and wanted to help lessen his burden so he could focus on his studies. Uryu appreciated their kindness. After dinner, the sisters formally thanked Uryu and suggested they part ways. Indeed, they had followed him to the cemetery that day and overheard his conversation with Mahiru, realizing the shrine was not the best place for him. Since they wanted him to pursue his own dreams, Yae and Asahi, who had openly expressed their feelings for Uryu, decided to support him because they cared for him. They went back and shared their secret with Uryu and started packing his bags. Before Uryu could say anything, they sent him away from the shrine to look for a new successor. They believed in achieving their dreams independently, but they would always pray for Uryu's success. Having said that, Uryu could only accept their good intentions. They thanked each other and said their goodbyes. Just a few steps out, Uryu returned, saying he wanted to introduce a successor. As a child, he had prayed for his mother's recovery, but when his prayers weren't answered, he began to deny the existence of gods. However, living at the shrine and interacting with the shrine maidens changed his perspective. He realized that praying for others could be a source of support for them. Unknowingly, he began to want to help them, making helping others in front of the gods his new dream. So, he declared, "Let me be the successor to the Kanjin shrine." Realizing Uryu's determination, the sisters dropped their pretense, and the grandfather looked on contentedly. However, what concerned Yae and Asahi the most was whom Uryu planned to marry to inherit the shrine. Uryu hadn't decided yet, but he figured there was no rush to start thinking about it. Uryu, who was usually very healthy, caught a cold. Upon waking up, he saw a rarely gentle Yuna who had cooked porridge for him. While she was worried that Uryu might not like her cooking, he had already finished eating. However, the thermometer was out of batteries, so Yuna held Uryu's face and pressed her forehead against his. Her lips were very close, but just when Uryu felt his fever might have subsided, he felt even hotter. When he opened his eyes, it seemed like it had all been a dream, but there was an empty bowl beside him, and Yuna stood at the door, her face flushed with embarrassment, hardly believing her own actions. The next day, Uryu was completely healthy, but Yuna seemed distracted and had even tied her hair up messily. Yae pulled Uryu aside and told him that this usually meant Yuna was forcing herself and hiding something. Uryu was used to taking care of these matters and said he would handle it. Returning, he found Yuna's hairstyle even more disheveled, and she had accidentally knocked over a shelf due to her distraction. Yae checked her forehead, and indeed, Yuna had a fever. Yet she refused to rest, not wanting to leave all the work to others. Yae headbutted her, nearly knocking her out. She didn't like her sister overexerting herself, but wanted her to rely more on her. Yuna then fell into a slump, confessing that she felt obligated to work harder because Uryu, despite the difficulties, was willing to take over the shrine. Uryu was surprised to hear that he was the reason, and bluntly told Yuna that if she kept pushing herself, it would only give him a headache as he would have to work even harder. After all, he had always been inspired by Yuna, who consistently put in great effort for the shrine. His words captured Yuna's heart, and she suddenly jumped onto his back, asking him to carry her home. By evening, she was fully revitalized. The next day marked the start of a new term. Yuna even went to pray to the gods for continued good health. The following morning, Uryu accidentally walked in on Asahi taking a bath, seeing her naked. Asahi teased him, saying he could come closer if he wanted a better look. Unfortunately for her, Uryu, unfazed by such tactics, did not take the bait. This new semester, Yuna's school is hosting a festival with a play titled Body Swap Story. The plot involves a shy boy with feminine traits and an outgoing girl with masculine traits, each pretending to live as the other gender. Uryu, the only boy in the class and naturally good-looking, is chosen to play the male lead, as he would look fitting in women's clothing. With no way to refuse, Uryu accepts the role. However, Yuna isn't pleased, thinking it unfair to the girl who would act opposite him, so she decides to play the female lead herself, a typical move for the tsundere Yuna. The class president had intended to pick Yuna anyway, having noticed the special relationship between her and Uryu, and mistakenly thinking they were a couple. She even planned to use the filming as an excuse for them to openly show affection. That evening, they shared the news with Yae and Asahi, who both reacted with jealousy. Yuna, thinking about acting with Uryu in drag, could hardly contain her excitement. But is this blushing Yuna really her? Little did anyone know that their bodies had actually switched. 2 days earlier, after Yuna finished praying, her soul swapped with Uryu, who was reading in his room. His first reaction was to check Yuna's body. Then he rushed back to his room to confirm he really looked like Yuna. Returning to his room, he found himself, with Yuna's soul, more composed than him. It seemed she almost expected this to happen. Now, with swapped bodies, they had to pretend to be each other to maintain their normal lives. The first challenge was adapting to each other's restroom habits. For Uryu, the hardest part was wearing women's clothing daily. A mishap could lead to a nosebleed. Uryu had to learn shrine maiden etiquette with Yae and Asahi, while Yuna had to handle making bentos. Both found their new roles excruciating. Unable to bear the stress, Uryu decided to confide in Yae and Asahi and agreed with Yuna to come clean at dinner. However, their secretive chatting was discovered by Asahi, who felt Uryu was getting too close to Yuna and asked him his feelings. Meanwhile, Yae also confronted her sister about her recent talks with Uryu. Both sides refused to confess. Consequently, Asahi confessed her feelings for Uryu to Yuna, and Yae did the same to Uryu. Stunned by Asahi's confession, Uryu froze, while Yuna was shocked to learn Asahi had already confessed to Uryu. Caught in swapped bodies and now privy to each other's secrets, they couldn't reveal the truth. They had to find a way to switch back without Yae and Asahi finding out. After body swapping, Uryu and Yuna effortlessly acted out each other's roles since they just had to play themselves. However, a classmate soon reminded them that exams were next week, which alarmed Uryu as he remembered Yuna's poor English. He panicked about the upcoming test. Surprisingly, after school, Yuna stayed behind to study English. Uryu told her not to push herself too hard, but Yuna didn't want Uryu's grades to suffer. Hearing this, Uryu felt a surge of affection, even though he was looking at his own face. Still, he didn't want to force Yuna and left, saying he didn't mind. Uryu also faced his own challenge. As a shrine maiden, Yuna needed to dance, something Uryu had no clue about. He practiced quietly in his room, understanding the effort Yuna must have put into dancing well. He couldn't bear the thought of ruining Yuna's reputation, and realized that Yuna must have felt the same about studying English. This soul swap unexpectedly deepened Uryu's understanding of Yuna. Both struggled late into the night. The next day, Uryu was sore all over and realized how tough being a shrine maiden was. The class president approached Uryu, asking why he seemed so happy and if he had made any progress with Yuna. Uryu, mimicking Yuna's tsundere tone, denied any relationship with himself, but mentioned that a successor for the shrine had been found, which should be relieving. To his surprise, the class president confidently stated that he wasn't Yuna because she would never say such a thing. Uryu was confused, wondering why the class president would react that way, and if Yuna was hiding something. Just then, a deity wearing a fox mask appeared behind him, and the next second, Uryu was back in his own body. He recalled seeing the same mask when Yae fell from the cliff and wondered if this deity had been meddling all along. When he came to, he found himself in a strange place with a key in hand, wondering what Yuna was doing there at night. Meanwhile, Yuna was back in her own body too. Seeing her friend chanting to ward off evil spirits, she reassured everyone that she was fine. The class president asked about her earlier comment about finding a successor. Realizing the mix-up, Yuna said it was just a joke, smoothly diffusing the situation. Fortunately, Yuna and Uryu had already switched back. Being in one's own body felt right. Suddenly, Uryu pulled out a key. Yuna explained that she had found it. Uryu then asked why she hadn't told the class president about finding a successor. Yuna replied that she had been too busy and planned to discuss it later. Uryu suspected that he might not actually want to inherit the shrine. The more he learned about Yuna, the less he felt he knew her. He expressed a desire to understand her better. This conversation was overheard by Yae and Asahi, who quietly debated whether Uryu was a scoundrel. Yuna, unconcerned, returned to her room. That night, Uryu pondered Yuna's words and the class president's attitude, feeling that Yuna was hiding something. He wished they could switch bodies again, and surprisingly, the deity granted his wish. The next morning, they woke up in each other's bodies again. Yuna helped Uryu with his underwear, during which Uryu mentioned seeing a girl with a fox mask. Yuna casually suggested it might have been a deity, given they were at a shrine. She even envied Uryu for seeing the deity. After adjusting the straps, a sudden trick by the deity switched them back, and then they switched again at school. While packing Yuna's school bag, Uryu found a career directory marked at the page for a forensic science research institute. He wondered why Yuna would be interested in that when she was expected to stay at the shrine. He recalled her saying she was just doing what a shrine maiden should do, regardless of her own wishes. Perhaps she had other dreams. Uryu felt he knew very little about Yuna. The class president approached again, quickly noticing that Yuna seemed different. Uryu, pretending to have memory issues, managed to bluff his way through the conversation, marveling at how well the class president understood Yuna. Yet the class president mentioned that there were things Yuna wouldn't discuss with her and asked if Uryu wanted to understand Yuna better. Without thinking, he agreed, and the class president led him to the place where he had returned to his own body. This place turned out to be the secret base of the class president and Yuna, who had met in elementary school. Yuna often visited the class president's family dango shop with her mother, and the first time they met, Yuna ate all the dango the class president made. Yuna was outside listening to their conversation, but back then, her relationship with the class president wasn't as strong. Their relationship improved, and Yuna became more outstanding after her mother's death. During that tough time, Yuna was too hesitant to go buy dango and sat alone in the park looking sad. That's when the class president gave her a skewer of dango, and their bond grew stronger from then. The class president also took Yuna to her family's now-closed shop. The dango shop had a long history, but was losing customers year by year. The class president wanted to attract a more diverse clientele, but her stubborn mother was resistant to change. She secretly practiced in this place, always ready to take control. Her dream was to inherit her family's dango shop. Then she asked what Yuna's dream was. The two discussed everything from the future to their dreams in this secret base. The class president even prepared a notebook for Yuna to record her dreams, assuring that by reading this notebook, Uryu could understand the real Yuna. However, just as he was about to open it, he hesitated and ultimately decided that Yuna herself should be the one to look at it. He revealed the truth to the class president, who had already noticed the change in him, being Yuna's close friend. Bringing Uryu here was maybe because she also wanted to understand a side of Yuna that no one else knew. At that moment, the deity appeared again behind Uryu, but he sensed it before anything happened and asked the deity to stop. The deity switched them back, and the rest was left for the two of them to resolve on their own. Before discussing serious matters, the class president brought over a plate of dango when Yuna was in a good mood. Uryu then asked her what she truly wanted to do. The story goes back to when the previous shrine maiden passed away. As a young child, Yuna had asked her mother why their shrine's festivals were becoming fewer. Her mother explained it was because her grandfather was getting older and lacked the energy to organize festivals. She mentioned that if Yuna became the chief priest, she could increase the number of festivals. Since then, that dream had been planted in Yuna's heart. After her mother's death, the shrine declined day by day. Yuna wrote many ideas to revive the shrine and shared them with the class president, as the shrine could not survive much longer at this rate. Uryu thought her dream was impressive, but becoming a chief priest as a woman is incredibly challenging, which is why the shrine sought a son-in-law as a successor. With Uryu determined to inherit the shrine, there seemed no need for Yuna to continue striving, so she abandoned her dream. She planned to burn her notebook of ideas, but Uryu discovered it before she could. She hadn't told her best friend because she feared disappointment and rejection. However, how could the class president dislike Yuna? Just as they reconciled, Uryu made a sarcastic remark, suggesting Yuna was just making excuses because she knew she wasn't suited to be the chief priest. He proposed that it might be better for him to take over. Once he became the chief priest, his first act would be to fire the three sisters and introduce more modern ideas to attract more worshippers. Unable to bear his words, Yuna lashed out at Uryu, stating that the shrine's purpose is not merely to attract visitors and that his approach was fundamentally flawed. In her anger, she revealed the solutions she had thought hard about. It turned out Uryu was intentionally provoking her. He knew that since her mother's death, Yuna had been fearful, worried that her candid remarks might bring misfortune to others. The gentler people treated her, the more she withdrew. To make her reveal her true feelings, he had to oppose her in an argument. Only someone as self-centered and narcissistic as Uryu could do such a thing. Yuna continued to share her many ideas passionately. She wanted her sister Yai to design cute amulets and Asahi to handle the marketing, aiming to make their Kanjin shrine a favorite place for both deities and visitors, fulfilling her dream of the best Kanjin shrine. While recalling these ideas, Yuna also remembered the happy times when she was striving to find solutions and her undying dream. Therefore, she declared a challenge to Uryu, determined to prove that she could be the chief priest of Kanjin Shrine. Uryu readily accepted, although their conversation quickly escalated into another argument. After resolving her feelings, the school's cultural festival arrived. Since the school was originally a girls' school, many male students from other schools would attend to flirt. Now, as a Miko with a growing reputation, Yuna attracted many visitors. At one point, Uryu saw a few guys surrounding a girl and went to help, but Yae had already handled the situation herself. She had come with Asahi and Mahiru, but got separated from them. Now reunited with Uryu, she seized the chance to monopolize his attention and dragged him around the festival. Uryu couldn't refuse Yae's request, and they were seen holding hands, which Yuna noticed. After exiting a maze, Uryu received a call from Mahiru. who couldn't contact Asahi. Uryu informed Yae about the situation and began searching for Asahi, who was sitting on the rooftop with her phone battery dead. She had planned a secret date with Uryu, but ended up getting lost instead. Just then, she heard a girl confessing her love through a megaphone. Inspired, Asahi decided to be bold since she had already expressed her feelings to Uryu. She picked up a megaphone and called out for Uryu, threatening to share his embarrassing stories if he didn't show up soon. Uryu rushed to the rooftop, worried Asahi might be in trouble, and grabbed her shoulders, asking if something bad had happened. Embarrassed, Asahi admitted her phone was just dead. As Uryu tried to leave, she pulled him back, whispered into the megaphone that she wanted to date him at the festival, and everyone heard it. Yuna knew that both Yae and Asahi liked Uryu and thought his choice was none of her concern. Yet, why did it hurt so much inside? Their class's performance was soon to start, and both Uryu and Yuna, the main characters, had changed into their costumes. Everyone was curious if they would kiss at the climax of the story, but the class president, who personally adapted the script, chose to disappoint those expectations. While she initially considered turning it into a sweet romance, the true story they were telling was about a boy and a girl who swapped identities, lived each other's lives, faced numerous challenges, and finally returned to their true selves. It was an inspiring story. Outside, Yae and the others had already found seats. Even Tsuruyama came, eager not to miss Uryu in female attire. Before going on stage, Yuna suddenly asked Uryu what he thought about Yae and Asahi. Uryu simply replied that he wasn't thinking about marriage at all. Yuna understood that for now, they just needed to do their best in their roles. The play was a success. Yuna even used her character to express her real dreams. She had always envied Uryu. If she could have been adopted by the shrine as a boy and become the heir, perhaps her dreams would have been easier to achieve. Maybe it was this humble wish that the gods heard, leading to their soul swap. But now, Yuna had come to a realization. She is who she is. Whether chasing an impossible dream or acting recklessly, she was determined to forge her own path in life. Meanwhile, Uryu knelt on one knee, willingly supporting her from the side. After their lines ended, he whispered an encouraging, "Keep it up," to Yuna. As the curtain fell, the audience applauded them enthusiastically, but Tsuruyama looked strangely disturbed and left her seat. Inside, Uryu was somewhat reluctant to let go. He was about to make a light joke when he saw Yuna's face flushed with embarrassment, which made his own face turn red. Later, Yuna went to the rooftop alone, replaying the scenes in her mind. Just as she was about to perform a ritual to cleanse herself of these thoughts, the class president appeared and stopped her. Yuna confided in her friend, who saw through everything and told her that what she felt was not impurity. It was a love sweeter than any dango, hidden deep within her heart. Recently, Uryu has been busy flirting with 3 sisters and finally remembered that he needs to study for his medical school entrance exams at Kyoto University. He sent a message to Tsuruyama suggesting they study together next weekend. Tsuruyama eagerly agreed, but on the weekend, Uryu was clearly distracted. While writing, he would blush, obviously recalling some indecent images. Tsuruyama interrupted his daydreaming and, noticing his empty room, asked if he was hiding any inappropriate books. Asahi, who came to serve tea, answered for him, saying Uryu was nothing like a typical adolescent boy, but that was no problem, since he had the company of the beautiful 3 sisters. In the middle of the conversation, Asahi accidentally bumped into the table corner. Uryu immediately reached out to steady her. Tsuruyama, witnessing this, felt uncomfortable and excused herself to use the restroom. Yae quickly offered to show her the way, actually wanting to secretly ask Tsuruyama for Uryu's childhood photos. Tsuruyama did not directly answer. From her recent interactions, she had realized that both Yae and Asahi liked Uryu, which clouded her heart with gloom. She thought her place by Uryu's side was reserved for her. Returning to the room, she heard Uryu flirting with Yuna. Seeing Yuna's flushed face, Uryu thought she had a fever and touched her forehead. Yuna's demeanor was easy to read, clearly showing her feelings for Uryu. Tsuruyama stood outside the door, listening to the noise inside, feeling bitter. Before leaving, she mustered the courage to invite Uryu to her house for dinner, considering herself part of Uryu's family. Uryu had no reason to refuse, thinking the 3 sisters had their meals sorted and shouldn't worry. Just as he agreed, noisy sounds came from the kitchen. It seemed the microwave had exploded. Hearing the chaos, Uryu sighed, unable to leave them alone, and decided to postpone the dinner at Tsuruyama's house. He reassured Tsuruyama that she would be fine without him. Understanding, Tsuruyama watched him return and then faced her empty house, feeling utterly dejected. She wondered if it would have been better not to reunite with Uryu, so she wouldn't see expressions on him that she had never seen before. Expressions that revealed a side of Uryu she never knew, and that didn't belong to her. At that moment, Tsuruyama realized that the space by Uryu's side for her was gone, yet she still longed to see the Uryu she knew. Just then, she received a message from a friend announcing she was dating her crush. Recently, the Dark God Shrine has become very popular. It's said that wishes made to the Dark God come true. After hearing that someone's wish to start dating their crush was fulfilled immediately, Yae became very interested. So, the group headed to the Dark God Shrine deep in the mountains. On the way, Uryu asked the three sisters what wishes they planned to make. Yuna imagined herself eating dumplings and watching cats, when Uryu jokingly called her priestess. Asahi fantasized about winning consecutive Japanese marathon races, with Uryu taking leave from his grandfather to watch his important girlfriend shine. This thought made her giggle. Yae was even less restrained, imagining a date with Uryu. They saw people street dancing, and Uryu joined them, impressively showing off in front of Yae, and then publicly proposing to her, which delighted her immensely. Finally, they reached the Dark God Shrine, but it looked long neglected. Suddenly, a crow's screech startled them, intensifying the creepy atmosphere. Uryu even thought he saw a figure, which the sisters speculated might be the Dark God. They then asked Uryu about his wish, wondering if it was to get into Kyoto University. Uryu replied that he would achieve that goal on his own, stating that even if he decided to inherit the shrine, his belief wouldn't change. It's not gods but oneself who fulfills wishes. Hearing this, the sisters changed their minds and decided to just greet the Dark God before leaving, as they too wanted to rely on themselves to fulfill their desires. They believed that even without making a wish, they could forge their own destinies. The next second, an unusual image appeared in everyone's minds, feeling somewhat different from their usual selves. On their way back, they all felt increasingly strange. Meanwhile, the figure Uryu had seen earlier emerged, making a wish to the Dark God. Unexpectedly, it was Tsuruyama. As she made her wish, the three sisters in front of Uryu suddenly disappeared. Then, he woke up in a bed, but it wasn't his room at the shrine, it was in an orphanage. Uryu didn't understand what was happening and felt like he'd forgotten something. He instinctively went to the restroom, and upon opening the door, he saw Tsuruyama changing clothes. Far from being embarrassed, Tsuruyama flirted with Uryu, pressing her body against his back and inviting him to shower together. Uryu, with a nosebleed, fled the scene and later went to the Kanjin shrine. He greeted the three sisters as if they were old friends, but they didn't recognize him at all and treated him like a pervert who had trespassed into their home. Uryu panicked, as the sisters, who previously adored him, now looked at him with suspicion and disgust. He couldn't help but call out their names, which only made them more alarmed. When Uryu mentioned that they were so close, he had seen them undressed and talked about experiences they had never had. They were convinced Uryu was not only a pervert, but also a lunatic. Yuna threw salt at him to drive him away and threatened to call the police if he didn't leave. Deeply distressed, Uryu returned to the institution where Tsuruyama was waiting for him in the living room. Seeing Uryu distraught, she came forward to comfort him with her body and kissed him, telling him not to bear it alone and that he could share his troubles with her. After all, they were a couple. Who would have thought that one day Uryu would be so disliked by the three sisters? Hearing that he was to marry one of them, they called him a pervert. When Uryu woke from this nightmare, Tsuruyama had already marked his face with drawings. He was still in the dormitory of Miracle Garden, and 3 days had passed since the strange event. Uryu still hadn't found a way to break the situation. After washing up, he went out to find Mahiru and Tsuruyama waiting for him for breakfast. Mahiru mentioned they could stay here until graduation, so he just needed to focus on preparing for the entrance exams. Uryu's current school was not the girls' school Yuna attended. He had mostly figured out the situation. The three sisters hadn't forgotten him. They simply didn't know him. It seemed he was in a parallel world where he had never lived at the shrine. In this world, Uryu could be recommended for Kyoto University's medical school, but the most unusual thing was his romantic relationship with Tsuruyama. Everyone in class knew about it, and Tsuruyama flirted with him openly. However, Uryu was preoccupied with how to return to his original world and did not want to continue his life here. He drew pictures of the three sisters and repeatedly asked Tsuruyama if she recognized them. She appeared clueless and even wondered if Uryu had a mental issue. When he mentioned being adopted by the shrine and wanting to return to that world, Tsuruyama became uncommunicative, accusing Uryu of indirectly trying to break up with her. Mahiru, who observed their bickering, reminded Uryu to consider Tsuruyama's feelings. She had come to the institution after her parents tragically died and cried daily. Uryu offered no words of comfort, simply sitting by her side. Perhaps Tsuruyama liked that he never relied on anyone but strove to achieve his goals on his own. From that day, Tsuruyama had worked hard, aiming to be like Uryu just to stay by his side. Realizing this, Uryu once again sat beside the disheartened Tsuruyama. The young couple cuddled closely together. However, Uryu suffered from insomnia that night. Although staying in this world meant no worries, he still couldn't abandon the three sisters. The next day, Tsuruyama called Uryu to the bathroom to help her fetch a shower cap. Tsuruyama and Mahiru even invited him to join them, but as a gentleman, Uryu couldn't possibly agree. Instead, he used a pole to pass the shower cap inside. As time passed, Uryu became increasingly concerned about the three sisters and still hadn't found a way back to his original world. While lost in thought, he accidentally bumped into Asahi, who was running. Asahi recognized him as the previous pervert, but Uryu was only concerned about her foot, knowing she was a marathon runner. His kindness quickly calmed Asahi, though her initial impression of him remained negative. She left saying, "I'm fine," but accidentally dropped her headband. Uryu picked up the headband and tried to return it, but Asahi mistook him for a stalker and screamed all the way back to the shrine. Uryu followed her to the shrine, where Yae threw him over her shoulder and pinned him to the ground. Yuna even considered calling the police. However, they noticed the headband Uryu was holding and realized the misunderstanding. Asahi thanked Uryu, and as the sisters turned to go back to the shrine, Uryu suddenly knelt and apologized for his presumptions, then shared his experience. He explained that he had once lived with the three sisters at the Kamigami shrine in another world, becoming close as family. Even if the sisters didn't recognize him now, he would appear and help whenever they needed. Unable to return to his original world, he did not want to sever this connection and wished to contribute to this family. Uryu's story evoked a sense of familiarity in the sisters, as if it had really happened. They could see his deep affection for the shrine. However, Yuna still rejected him, insisting that they weren't his real family. But as Uryu was about to leave, Yi suddenly grabbed him and asked if they had met before, reminding him that they had indeed met once when they were children. Meanwhile, Mahiru was at home, complaining that Uryu had gone missing. Tsuruyama volunteered to look for him. Uryu had already been brought back to the shrine, and it wasn't long before Yae started showing kindness towards him. Moreover, Uryu knew many of their secrets, such as the fact that the three sisters were not related by blood. This even made Asahi start to believe him. However, Yuna still insisted they didn't need help and demonstrated her household skills, taking 30 minutes just to peel a radish. Uryu was speechless and pointed out Yuna's problem. She took on too much by herself. He hoped Yuna would be more carefree and rely on others more. He then went on to encourage Asahi, who was not good at detailed tasks, and helped Yae clean her room, finding a book she had lost long ago. Uryu proved through his actions that his previous words were not just talk. He could indeed contribute to the shrine. He hoped the sisters would allow him to visit often in the future. The sisters acknowledged his sincerity, but still felt this wasn't his place to stay. They promised to help Uryu return to his original world, as he really missed the sisters from that world. Uryu was deeply moved and couldn't help but confess on the spot, "I really love you, three sisters." This startled them, and they called him a rascal. It was already late, and Uryu had to return to Miracle Garden. Unexpectedly, upon opening the door, he saw Tsuruyama, who had come in the rain. Tsuruyama, drenched and with a lackluster look in her eyes, clung to Uryu's arm and apologized to the sisters for her boyfriend's disturbance. In the rain, Tsuruyama arrived at the shrine to find Uryu. The three sisters were very friendly to her, even providing her with a change of clothes. While Tsuruyama took a bath, they went to confront Uryu, accusing him of claiming to help but already having a girlfriend in this world. Uryu was confused himself. Before arriving in this world, he and Tsuruyama were already in a relationship. He explained that he had no romantic intentions towards Tsuruyama, but she took their relationship seriously, which made him reluctant to hurt her. Yuna questioned him, asking if his approach was truly fair to Tsuruyama. Uryu had no answer. That night, they stayed at the shrine, and Uryu was given his old room from the other world. After the initial excitement, he pondered Yuna's question. If he didn't have feelings for Tsuruyama, why didn't he just break up? He then remembered Mahiru's words about Tsuruyama striving hard just to be with him. To avoid hurting anyone, Uryu was left thinking hard. Unexpectedly, Tsuruyama sneaked into his room that night, dressed provocatively. Just as Uryu thought he might lose his virginity, Tsuruyama pulled out a workbook. They both were aiming for Kyoto University, so of course they needed to study all night. The three sisters, who had been eavesdropping outside, finally relaxed and quietly retreated. Uryu tried to talk to Tsuruyama but saw that she had quickly finished the problems and was grading them. She reminded him that they needed to work hard for their dreams. Uryu explained why he wanted to be a doctor, to shield children who couldn't live with their parents, like them. They planned to build a hospital and expand Miracle Garden to become a hope for children. To achieve these dreams, Tsuruyama had been restraining herself from making a move on Uryu. They would save their first experience for after their big exams. Hearing this, Uryu exploded, but Tsuruyama quickly clarified that by first experience, she meant their first trip to an amusement park. After studying, Tsuruyama fell asleep from exhaustion. Uryu wanted her to sleep in his room, but as she slept, she suddenly apologized. At that moment, Uryu seemed to understand something. He stayed awake all night, and when Tsuruyama woke up, he directly asked if she had changed this world. Given the situation, Tsuruyama could only admit that she had made a wish to the dark god for Uryu not to be adopted by the shrine and to be with her instead. Uryu, having guessed the answer already, was not surprised. Tsuruyama was prepared for Uryu to cut ties with her, but instead, he began to blame himself. This made Tsuruyama even more distressed. It was her mistake. Why was Uryu apologizing? He had always been afraid to express his true feelings, worried about what would happen if things went wrong. The easiest way for her to attract Uryu's attention was through pranks. In fact, while at Miracle Garden, she had many opportunities to confess her feelings, but never took them. It was only after Uryu started staying at the shrine that Tsuruyama noticed he was being influenced by the three sisters and was changing bit by bit. Unable to hold back, she reappeared before Uryu, hiding her heartache with a smile. Eventually, Tsuruyama could no longer suppress her feelings for Uryu and followed the rumor to make a wish to the dark god, not wanting to lose her place by Uryu's side. As she spoke, she cried, breaking Uryu's heart. Tsuruyama, who was so afraid to voice her thoughts, was now laying everything out to him, which was comforting yet overwhelming for Uryu. He asked if she needed to cry in his arms. The three sisters, who had been eavesdropping, couldn't help but emerge, breaking the awkward silence in the room. It was time for Uryu and Tsuruyama to leave. Before leaving, Uryu suggested they get a charm. The gentler Uryu was, the more Tsuruyama blamed herself. Then, overhearing a child making a casual wish that his parents continue to love him after his brother is born, shocked Tsuruyama. She thought it was too casual a wish to make in front of Uryu. Uryu laughed heartily and teased that the wish was quite capricious. They then went together to get a charm. Uryu used to pray daily at the shrine before his mother died. After her death, he decided not to rely on gods, but on himself. However, after living with the three sisters, he grew, not wanting to dismiss anyone's desire to pray to the gods. Uryu's dream of becoming a doctor to save lives remained unchanged, but now, praying to the gods to save people's spirits also became part of his dream, all thanks to the three sisters. Just as he finished sharing this, he saw the sisters looking desperate because today's working shrine maiden was unavailable, and they were short-staffed. Uryu immediately offered to dress up as a shrine maiden for work. "Are you addicted to cross-dressing now?" At that moment, Tsuruyama, being the correct gender, said she could help. The three sisters quickly found her a shrine maiden outfit, which suited her well. Tsuruyama's first customer was a high school girl who asked for a charm for romantic success. Facing a girl with the same wish as herself, Tsuruyama handed over the charm and sincerely wished for the gods to bless her. Hearing the girl's thanks, Tsuruyama finally understood what Uryu had been talking about. With Tsuruyama's help, the three sisters were even more effective and even considered having her stay as a formal shrine maiden. By evening, they were reluctant to see her leave. Tsuruyama apologized to them, blaming herself for disrupting their lives, but the sisters didn't mind. Uryu also felt that this world was not so bad and was glad to have come. Of course, they needed to return to their original world, but Tsuruyama didn't know how to go back. Perhaps another visit to the Dark God's shrine was needed. Regardless, she was determined to find a way back because she didn't want to hinder Uryu's dreams. The sisters all offered to help, but Uryu felt it was a rare opportunity to create some good memories in this world first. Everyone decided to participate in the Kamigami Shrine's autumn festival. On the day of the festival, Uryu and Tsuruyama arrived at the shrine, surprised by the large crowd. Asahi boasted, being the beautiful girl publicity head, and just as she finished speaking, she nearly dropped the box she was holding. Fortunately, Uryu quickly supported her. They then visited Yae, who was selling limited edition charms. For Yae in this world, it was a reunion after a long time with Uryu, and they were soon to part again. Uryu was very grateful to Yae. Her memories had saved him once. He promised to cherish those memories deeply. Finally, the two went to say goodbye to Yuna, who was holding a bunch of dumplings. Uryu teased her about getting fat, which sparked another playful argument between them. Tsuruyama stood by, quietly watching, noticing that Uryu seemed more animated when with the three sisters. This prompted her to ask him what he thought about them when they were alone. Uryu felt embarrassed and tried to avoid the question, but could not resist Tsuruyama's persistence. However, he struggled to describe his feelings, Just then, cheers came from nearby. The three sisters were about to start their dedication dance. Tsuruyama couldn't help but praise them as both cool and beautiful. She turned to share this with Uryu, only to find him already mesmerized. Now, without him having to say anything, Tsuruyama knew what he felt about the sisters. After the festival, the three sisters introduced Yomiko to Uryu and Tsuruyama, hoping she could help them return to their original world. In this world, Yomiko did not recognize Uryu.